Chapter 1305. To enter the mission area, one had to pass through a wild jungle. In China, there were many undeveloped tropical jungles. These jungles were basically at the border. But even in such a place, there would be troops stationed. Because here, there would always be some enemies eyeing them covetously. When China was first established, weapons were backward. There were many things that could not be extended, and they could not use force, because it would violate the peace treaty at that time. There was clearly an enemy invading, but after the alarm sounded, the enemy planes still wandered around China without fear. It was because of this treaty that the other party was like this. They clung to China, and did not dare to shoot. At that time, in order to repel the exploration plane sent by the enemy and protect national secrets, an officer flew a plane and crashed into it. Not shooting was not a violation of the treaty, but this officer was only 26 years old. Now the treaty had changed, but there were still many problems. Someone had entered the country, and was about to escape with the secrets they had found. If this person was still in the country, once he left the country, no one had the right to kill him. Crossing the border to kill would be condemned internationally. But at this moment, the jungle leading to the enemy was filled with thick fog. Such thick fog was very abnormal. In China, the surface and feng shui were the most important. There were many things that could not be explained by science. In addition, there were many ancient tombs in China. No one could imagine the underground world. This time, no one knew if someone had encountered something. It caused a thick fog to fill the air. This was the reason why the special forces invited the people from the Tang sect over. Because there were some things that only they could do. A Jew carried her large military school bag and stood at the entrance of the jungle. This is the jungle that senior brother was talking about. After passing through it, we will reach our destination. Little Allah, let's go. A Jew strolled in. Her walking speed was not slow. On the contrary, it was very fast. If one looked carefully, they would find that there was something on her shoes. Although a Jew could not drive, she was very good at feng shui fortune-telling. It might be easy for others to get lost in this kind of tropical rainforest. But for a Jew, it was not a problem at all. The Tang sect would cultivate everyone's special abilities. The current Jew was already fully equipped. She held a compass in her hand, and was indeed wearing a modern military uniform. Such a contrast made people feel even cooler. In the human world, many people did not know. In ancient times, some exorcists had already become special forces soldiers, and a Jew was the strongest one besides her mother. The compass shows that it's in the east. A Jew stopped and glanced at her palm. Oh, the aura is a little strong. Let's continue. However, this time, Alaska didn't move. Instead, it faced a certain place on the tree and raised all its fur. Its claws were also exposed. It kept scratching the ground, as if it was ready to pounce on the tree and fight. It was blocking in front of a Jew, even if the huge monster in front of it was too dangerous. As a loyal dog, it was not afraid. It didn't back down at all. Instead, it reacted in the most loyal way possible. A Jew looked in the direction where Alaska was baring its teeth. There was a python wrapped around the tree. The python was very large, and its entire body was wrapped around the tree trunk. Its head was triangular, and it kept spitting out its scarlet tongue. Its eyes were extremely dangerous, and it was clearly staring at a Jew. But if there was only one python, it would be fine. However, there was another 145 degrees to a Jew's left. In other words, there were two pythons eyeing a Jew covetously. No wonder Alaska's snow was so strong. Such a situation was really worrying. Hiss! One of the giant pythons had already begun to move. With its length and thickness, even if it did not use its poisonous fangs, it could use its body to directly rap a Jew to death. However, the giant python's attack speed was very fast. Almost at the moment it was discovered, it pounced toward a Jew. The other giant python also took the opportunity to leap. This human dared to break into their territory. She was simply courting death. She was so small that it was not enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. But the moment they bit down, their jaws were suddenly pinched by something. That kind of strength was so great that they could not imagine it. There was a bang. The first giant python was thrown out by a Jew with one hand. As for the second giant python, Aju grabbed its neck with one hand and pulled hard, directly stepping on its head under her feet. There was a rumbling sound. It was the sound of trees being swept down. The giant python that was stepped on by Aju crazily swung its tail, wanting to counterattack. Aju raised her fist and punched fiercely. That fist was clearly very small, but when it landed, it stunned the giant python. Then, she opened her palm, and countless Buddha beads flashed with a faint light as they fell, heavily hitting the giant python's 7 inches. After the other giant python saw the Buddha light, it wanted to turn around and escape. This girl was not an ordinary human at all. She was, before the giant python could confirm Aju's identity. Its body was heavily pressed back to its original place by the Buddha word that fell from the sky. They could not break free. They were just demons that had yet to take shape. They could not fight against the Buddha light at all. Aju looked at the giant python and squatted down. Her tiger eyes were big and beautiful. The animals here are not friendly, right, little Allah? She turned around and asked the little brother's favorite pet. Little Allah scratched its head. Do you think that all snakes, wolves, and cheetahs are like those animals in southern Tibet? The reason why they are friendly to you is not because they are really friendly, but because they have been destroyed by you so much that they can't be unfriendly. Sigh, I can't play with you anymore. After saying that, Aju stood up and said to the giant python in a dignified manner, I still have a mission to do. Look at you. It won't be long before you become a demon. You should have killed a lot of people, and there might be some soldiers among them. But Buddha is merciful. Hearing the words Buddha is merciful, the giant python raised its head and hid its hostility, trying to make itself look harmless and pitiful. However, what it did not expect was that the girl's next words were, I'll beat you to death now and let you pay back what you owe me. I'll send you to hell. Wait a minute. It shouldn't be like this. This was clearly not the line behind Buddha is merciful. The giant python stretched out its neck and let out a last low roar. Aju looked at the soft snake head and reached out to touch it. Don't thank me. I understand. If the giant python was still alive, it would definitely be angered to death by these words. After solving the problem, Aju carried the military bag on her back and looked at the empty space not far away with her naive tiger eyes. Her destination should be right in front of her. Chapter 1306. Aju's eyes were wide open as she lifted her school bag. As she walked, she said to Alaska, I don't know what exactly is here that can touch such a huge miasma. I have to hurry over. Otherwise, Wooly's teammates will be in danger. The nagging voice gradually faded away with the unfathomable depth of the forest. At the same time, on the west side of the forest, everyone in the problem army was holding guns in their hands. They were wearing military green battle suits that were the same color as the forest. Their faces were still covered with masks, but this time, their expressions were somewhat solemn. Even the large windshield couldn't hide the worry and irritation in their eyes. Captain, this is already our 5th lap. Every time we walk a lap, we will return to the original spot. Should we wait a little? When Li Hailu was on a mission, he never called Bai Zhuan by his name. Instead, he called him Captain. The problem army was the same. They turned their heads and looked at Bai Zhuan. In the past 2 years, they had received many missions, but none of them were like this one. Not only did all the directional positioning instruments fail, even the police dogs that came over were trembling. The strangest thing was the fog. Logically speaking, there should be wind wherever there was fog. However, this place was so quiet that it made people feel strange. What exactly did those people take from here? Why was this mission so abnormal? Everyone had a question mark in their hearts. There were not many people in the problem army. This group, including Bai Zhuan, only had a total of 7 people. Bai Zhuan turned his head. The deep eyes that were revealed by the mask were very eye-catching. He scanned the surroundings, then squatted down and rubbed the soil on the ground. It was not pure sand, but mixed with many stone fragments. Is there a mountain on the west side of the forest? Bai Zhuan asked the commissioner in charge of intelligence who had followed them out. That person nodded. Yes, Captain. This mountain is very old. I don't know which mountain it belongs to. There are no records in the information, but it spans the map of China and neighboring countries. Is there an ancient tomb on the mountain? Bai Zhuan asked again, That person thought for a moment. I think so. I forgot what it was called. I know. Bai Zhuan stood up, but his eyes were a little heavy. It should be the tomb of the ghost's mother. Ghost's mother? What was that? All the problem soldiers turned their heads and looked at Bai Zhuan. Why did their captain even know about these things? Bai Zhuan's voice was indifferent. There are records in the Buddhist scriptures that the ghost's mother is also known as Hariti, which is transliterated in Sanskrit as the Empress of the River Pear. In ancient times, a Buddha was born in the royal residence city, so a celebration was held. 500 people attended the celebration. Along the way, they met a pregnant woman who was accompanying them. Unexpectedly, she had a miscarriage midway, and all 500 people left her behind. She swore an oath that in her next life, she would reincarnate into princely residence city and devour all the children there. This was where Ghost Mother Nine Child had her miscarriage. It was said that her nascent divinity had become a Buddha. Her followers built a tomb for her in order to pay tribute to her, also that they could one day see her return. Captain, you even read Buddhist scriptures? They really can't understand the world of a top student. Since this ghost mother has become a Buddha, why is this place still like this? Shouldn't all Buddhas be good? Bai Zhuan looked at the fog that filled the sky. Not necessarily. When you leave later, don't look in front. Look under your feet, and feel the thickness under your feet. Follow behind me and walk in a row. Yes. Although the problem soldiers had many questions in their hearts, they knew that their captain must have his reasons for letting them do this. Therefore, no one said anything. They lined up in a row, closed their eyes, and walked forward bit by bit with their legs close to each other. That kind of speed was very slow, and there was an indescribable torture, especially when you couldn't look in front and lowered your head to grope forward. There was always a sense of insecurity. Fortunately, these people were all special forces soldiers. Even if they encountered such a thing that could not be explained by science, they were not afraid to lose their minds. In fact, whether it was novels or movies, they would all tell us the same thing. When danger came, don't think about how to escape, because you would never be able to escape. Instead, you had to find a breakthrough. The more stable you were, the more likely you would be to survive to the end. Just like Bai Zhuan and the others were now. If one of them did not have strong willpower and wanted to retreat, what they would face might be an infinite circuit, or something even more terrifying. After walking like this for an unknown period of time, Bai Zhuan's military boots finally stopped. Then he bent down again and touched the soil on the ground. It was much more delicate than before. It was obvious that they had changed places. That's enough. Bai Zhuan stood up straight and ordered, "All of you, open your eyes. First, look at the ground under your feet clearly. Then walk forward." Yes. Everyone was very cautious. The first moment they opened their eyes, they looked at their feet. There was a person in the middle who was very dangerous, because if he was a little further away, it was very likely that he would miss a step and fall to the cliff beside him. Fortunately, the other person did not walk directly. There was a snake coiled under his feet. No one knew whether the snake was alive or dead, but it just lay there softly. We finally walked out. The problem soldiers were very excited. "Captain, how did you do it?" Bai Zhuan glanced at his feet. The soil is different. Under any situation that affects vision and hearing, only the sense of touch is the most accurate. The magnetic field here is not right, causing us to hallucinate when we walk. We feel that we are walking in a straight line, but in fact we have already circled around. That's why we return to the original place again and again. Using the geology of the soil to determine the direction, there won't be a big problem. Not only the problem soldiers, even the team member, who was in charge of intelligence, was dumbfounded. He had a look of wonder on his face. Why did he have research on what kind of soil was like? Weren't they soldiers? When did they become top archaeologists? Li Hailu walked over and patted their shoulders comfortingly. "It's okay, you still have me, a bad student, to accompany you. There's no other way." When the captain was in high school, he was recommended to study abroad. He has won many awards in the country. Since he was young, he has been a pervert. Other than books, he is not interested in anything else. He started studying English at the age of 7. Don't learn from him. Vice Captain, Someone suddenly interrupted Li Hailu's words and pointed behind him. What is that thing? Chapter 1307. Someone suddenly interrupted Li Hailu's words and pointed behind him. What is that thing? Perhaps it was because his expression was too panicked. Or perhaps it was because the uncomfortable feeling just now was still lingering in people's hearts. Everyone looked in the direction his finger was pointing at. There were indeed things there. One after another, they stood in the thick fog, as if they were hiding in the surroundings and looking at them. At first they did not notice it. Now it looked a little like a human? No, that was not right. How could there be a human here? But if it was not a human, what could it be? In an instant, the problem soldiers raised the guns in their hands. Their spirits were tense to the extreme, just to deal with the situation that might appear in a while. However, nothing happened. The strange thing was that those people did not seem to move at all, and each of them looked very stiff. It was as if they were stuck there. The problem soldiers looked at each other. They felt that this place was very strange. If it were not for the captain, they might have stayed in place for the rest of their lives. But now, they had come to such a damned place. The snakes on the ground were also very strange. They seemed to be hibernating, but they also seemed to be not. Captain, what should we do now? The distance is not close, and there is also a fog between us. But how could there be people here? Li Hailu also gritted his teeth. He really did not want to say the word people, because the fact that people would appear here was too strange. Bai Zhuan narrowed his eyes. That shouldn't be a person. Not a person? What is it? Li Hailu trembled. To be honest, no matter how mighty and majestic he was not as calm as Bai Zhuan when it came to things in the unknown. In fact, no one would do what Bai Zhuan did. Li Hailu did not understand what was going on with him. Could it be that everyone who had been to the mountain was like this? Or was it that all the direct descendants of the Tang family were like this? In their eyes were there no dirty things? Bai Zhuan tilted his head and raised his gun to the side. It looks like something that has been set up. It looks a little like a doll. Mannequin. Li Hailu sighed in relief. I thought you would say dead body or ghost or something like that. Bai Zhuan raised his eyebrows. Although I can't see clearly here, one thing is certain. These human-like things don't wear clothes. Whether they are corpses or ghosts, they will wear clothes. If they don't wear white clothes that are fluttering in the wind, they won't appear. Therefore, it's not the kind of thing you think it is. The luster on their bodies just now should be the wood wax that was applied on them previously. Li Hailu, as expected of Master Bai, even at this point, he could still analyze what the other party was based on, whether they were wearing clothes or not. A few people followed Bai Zhuan and walked over. There were many snakes in this place. It was a bit like entering a snake cave. Most of the snakes were hanging on the trees. They were all listless, but their eyes were more vicious than the venomous snakes they had seen before. And the strangest thing was, every snake here seemed to be growing. That was right. It was growth. For example, when someone stepped on it just now, the snake was still 40 centimeters long. Now it had grown to about 42 centimeters. If it was others, they might not be able to see such a subtle difference. But they were all special forces soldiers, so they were very sensitive to distance and length. How could this be? If anything could grow at such a fast rate, it would be impossible. That was simply unimaginable. Moreover, only this circle of snakes looked like this. The snakes in other places did not look like this. However, the terrifying thing was that many snakes had begun to crawl towards that place. Bai Zhuan was right. There were puppets standing there. One after another, there were many puppets. They were actually not tall, but there was something below them. On the contrary, each of them was very short. They had exquisite small faces and bodies that had not grown up yet. It was obvious that these puppets were children who had not grown up yet. Judging from their clothes and workmanship, these puppets did not seem to be made now. They should have been made for a certain period of time. They looked a little like the Tang dynasty, but they were not completely the same. Because some of the clothes were even wearing kasaya, they had the style of the Western region. However, the problem soldiers were not in the mood to look at these puppets at all. All their attention was on the snakes. Every single one of them was growing bit by bit, making those who saw them feel anxious. Captain, what should we do now? Someone asked Bai Juan. Originally, their mission was to take back the things that the foreign enemy had taken out of their territory and keep China's secret. But now, not only could they not pass through this place, they had also discovered such a thing. This place was like a huge nutrient pool, and it had a deep influence on the snakes. If things were allowed to develop, more and more snakes would come over. When they grew to a certain extent and crawled out, they would all be giant pythons. A giant python might be easier to deal with for them. They could use a gun to hit its head, or break it 7 inches. But for the peaceful world outside the jungle, for those white-collar workers who were still working, the old people who were eating breakfast, and the students who were reading books, it would be an unprecedented disaster. They could not let these things escape. Absolutely not. Bai Juan also clenched his right hand tightly. The handle of the gun was stained with blood. Those puppets are very strange. Puppets? Li Hailu was anxious. Captain, why are you still concerned about puppets at this time? Bai Juan raised his eyes and glanced at him. The snakes don't dare to approach them. Moreover, to me, some things that can exist for so many years without any damage are not too normal. After Bai Juan's reminder, everyone finally reacted. Those puppets were indeed not normal. Especially those pairs of eyes. It was as if there was really a child's soul living inside. At this moment, there was a cracking sound. Someone and something moved. They took a closer look. It was those puppets. They seemed to be pulled by invisible strings as they walked towards them step by step. Not only that, they seemed to be singing some kind of song. In the beginning, the problem core wanted to open fire. But when these puppets opened their mouths, they seemed to have lost their senses. They only felt that the voice was extremely pleasant to hear. It was like the sound of Sanskrit coming from an ancient temple, but it was also like someone was telling the most ancient story. Wave after wave. It was very sad and gentle. It could make people feel an unprecedented peace from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 1308. However, this peace only lasted for less than a few seconds. Then their ears were replaced by other sounds. It sounded like the cry of a child. It was a very, very small cry, but it made people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. All of a sudden, it was as if something was tugging at their legs. The soldiers took a closer look and saw that at some point in time, they were surrounded by children. Those children were wearing red and green clothes, as if they were welcoming someone's bride. All of them had big blushes on their faces, but the darkness under their eyes was very dark, as if they had not slept for many days. However, upon closer inspection, they found that the darkness was not caused by lack of sleep. It was because these children were not normal at all. Moreover, their clothes were not modern fashions but ancient robes. That style was very familiar, as if it was the clothing patterns carved on the puppets just now. The problem armies were frightened by their own thoughts. However, these children were all looking at them with their eyes. Their bodies were all wet, as if they had been drenched by the rain. Then, they moved. That kind of action was indescribably strange. First, their necks moved, followed by their arms and legs. It was as if something was controlling them from behind. There were no less than 500 such children. They were densely packed as they walked towards them. Bit by bit they closed the distance. The soldiers felt as if they were about to be devoured. They even stretched out their hands. In the next second they all opened their mouths. Roar! The empty darkness stretched as far as the eye could see. It could not be considered a mouth at all. It was clearly a black hole that was emitting an extremely terrifying sound. The soldiers could not help but raise the guns in their hands, as if they were going to shoot in that direction. However, they did not know that what they were seeing was actually just an illusion. Among this group of people, only Bai Juan was still awake. No one knew why. Even he himself did not know how much the righteous aura on his body would make demons fear him. He pulled out his bayonet and cut off the snakes that tried to coil around him one after another. His entire body was bathed in blood, and he was like a war god that had descended from the sky. No snake dared to go forward. They could only circle around Bai Juan. But in reality, the real danger was not these snakes that were waiting for an opportunity to bite people to death. It was the Sanskrit chants that disturbed the thoughts of the problem legions. Now they raised their guns and faced Baijuan. Apart from Li Hailu, there were no less than 4 guns that were pointed at Baijuan. Their expressions were filled with indescribable fear, as if they had seen the most frightening thing in their lives. However, they did not know that the person standing in front of them was not a child, but their captain. They were about to pull the trigger. A loud bang was heard. Something smashed heavily on the puppet. The surrounding air was like a barrier that had been shattered. However, in an instant, the problem core felt that the child in front of them had disappeared. When they took a closer look, their guns were actually aimed at Baijuan. Under Baijuan's knife, there were broken snake segments one after another. Captain, just now the soldiers wanted to explain. Baijuan raised his hand and wiped the blood on his eyelids. His voice was indifferent, as if he did not care at all. Those puppets can disturb people's minds. Don't listen to things that you shouldn't listen to. What was that sound just now? Li Hailu glanced sideways at Baijuan. If it wasn't for that sound, they would have already fired. I'm not sure. However, all of this is not over yet. Baijuan looked at the puppets that were still moving. Just as he was about to raise his head, he saw a figure jump down from the tree and directly block in front of them. She was carrying a large military travel bag on her back. The ends of her hair were black and long. As she moved, it spread out in the air. When it landed, it spread out behind her very beautifully, directly covering the travel bag. She did not turn around, so Li Hailu and the others did not see her appearance. They only knew that it was a woman. Then they heard her clear voice shout, "All of you push back a little. These puppets still have thousands of years of resentment left on them. It's not good for you to absorb them. All of you step back. Let me take care of them." As the girl spoke, she held her small arm. Only then did they notice that her fingertips seemed to be bleeding. When the blood dripped onto the ground, it made a banging sound. In other words, it was very likely that it was her blood that woke them up just now. Just as the problem legions were still studying this problem, Baijuan, who was standing at the back, saw the back of the figure in front of him. His dark pupils suddenly trembled. It couldn't be her. His Jew should still be studying obediently at university. 2 days ago, he had received a WeChat message from her saying that Love had recently gained 10 pounds because of her. She even swaggered around when she walked. Wait a minute. Love. Baijuan looked over there again. He saw a large Alaska lying on the open ground with its tongue out in the thick fog. It was obvious that it was tired. Baijuan's body trembled when he saw this. He did not care if his comrades were beside him. He picked up the petite figure that had fallen from the sky from behind. A Jew was still struggling. She wanted to stretch out her fist and punch the person who had suddenly picked her up. However, as soon as her fist was out, she met that handsome and noble face. His facial features could not be any clearer. Even the gentleness and disapproval in his eyes were so familiar that they could not be any more familiar. Little brother. A Jew was really too happy. She turned around and pounced on Baijuan. In the end, she did not control her strength well and successfully pushed Baijuan to the ground heavily. That exquisite and beautiful oval face was filled with pink and tender excitement. Her pair of round tiger eyes were even brighter and more beautiful. Just like that, she carried a big school bag and lay on Baijuan's body very cutely. She asked crisply, "Why are you here?" Baijuan immediately felt that his lines had been snatched away. Shouldn't he be the one who should ask this question the most? However, when facing a Jew, he was always more patient than usual. His fingers wanted to touch her head before he spoke, but later on, he realized that there was still blood on his body and hands. He could only coax her in a low voice, "Be good, go down first. My body is dirty and there is blood." "Oh." A Jew's round tiger eyes rolled around again before she said seriously, "It's okay. I have blood on me too. Little brother, are you here to carry out a mission?" Chapter 1309. It's not important why I'm here. What's important is why you're here. Baijuan raised his eyebrows. He supported himself on the ground with one hand and supported Ajuz's waist with the other to help himself sit up. In the end, he couldn't help but stroke Ajuz's long hair. His girl suddenly appeared in front of him like this. He was caught completely off guard. Moreover, if he was not mistaken, the military uniform that Aju was wearing was a special military uniform, unless it was his uncle's side. No other place would carry such a military bag. Moreover, based on the current situation, other than his uncle's soldiers, no one dared to come to such a place. More importantly, why did his girl join the army? Aju's small face was fierce, and her eyes were bright. She said in a dignified manner, "I'm here to support you. The higher-ups sent an order that I was needed here, so I came over. I didn't expect to see little brother." She really wanted to rub against him. Aju thought so in her heart, but she couldn't really do so. She still had a mission. "Little brother, after I deal with these puppets, I'll come and rub against you." After throwing down such a bold sentence, Aju stood up with a tiger-like aura. The soldiers were a little shocked when they saw this. Aju and the others knew each other. They were Master Bai's family members. But what did she just say? The higher-ups gave an order? What was going on? Among them, the intelligence officer was the most dumbfounded. This was because he had never seen Aju before, and he did not know that Bai Xuan was already married. In his impression, their Master Bai had always been a flower that could only be seen from afar and not touched. Every time the group of artistic soldiers in the army saw him, their faces would turn red. However, Master Bai did not even look at those people. It was as if these beautiful female officers were not as charming as their brothers in his eyes. Moreover, when Master Bai was not on a mission, he was extremely difficult to get close to. He would not even touch others. Now he was actually being pounced on by a girl, and he was not angry at all. Even though that girl called him little brother? But when had Master Bai ever been so gentle to anyone? If it were not for the fact that it was so dangerous now, and the timing was not right, the intelligence officer would have long pestered his teammates beside him and asked, "Who was that girl? Why was the light in Master Bai's eyes warm when he looked at her?" However, there were still a bunch of strange wooden dolls standing in front of them. Those wooden puppets were so strange that they almost shot their captain to death. There were also snakes that kept growing, because of the existence of the puppets. Everything reminded them of the great dangers and challenges they faced. This mission was unexpectedly difficult. It was something they had never faced before. Aju didn't think much of it. Just as she was about to go all out, she was pulled back by Bai Xuan. "What are you going over there for? Do you know that it's very dangerous over there?" "Little brother, believe me, I can deal with them," Aju said solemnly. "I know how to chant scriptures." Bai Xuan wiped the blood on her forehead. "I know that you have been chanting scriptures since you were young. Be obedient and stand behind me later." "That won't do." Aju's tiger face froze. "These guys just let the snake attack little brother, and almost let Master Li and the others shoot you. I have to teach them a good lesson." As if they had heard Aju's words, the puppets all turned around and looked at Aju's location with gloomy eyes. Another wave of Sanskrit came. This time, those children were not illusions. Instead, they were real figures that swayed out from the clouds. Every one of them was opening their mouths. It was so dark that people could only feel the presence of one person. Bai Xuan turned his body and blocked in front of Aju. The muzzle of the gun was directly aimed at the swaying shadows. Suddenly, a gloomy voice sounded, as if countless children's voices had overlapped together. "An exorcist who hasn't formed yet wants to deal with us? It's simply a fool's dream. I'll let you see now how powerful the remnant thoughts of our Mother Goddess are." As that voice spoke, the surroundings suddenly fell into an unprecedented gloominess. It was not an illusion. The surrounding temperature began to become cold. One after another, the problem legions leaned back to back and looked behind them. Many children. There were all kinds of dead faces. They walked towards them bit by bit, as if they were here to collect a debt. The legendary night parade of 100 ghosts was probably referring to such a scene. The problem legions raised their guns and shot one down. Immediately, another one would follow. Moreover, they did not seem to be afraid of bullets at all. After being shot, their bodies only moved stiffly before they stood up again. At this moment, the eyes of the problem legions had already begun to sway. As expected, many things could not be explained by science. The voice continued to give orders. "Pounce on them and tear them apart one by one." Let them come to hell to accompany us. Especially that boastful little exorcist. Let her experience what it means to be haunted by resentment, and to live a life worse than death. In an instant, more figures swarmed towards them. This time their speed was obviously much faster. Each of them bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced in Aju's direction. Lord Bai raised his long spear, and was about to shoot. Right at this moment, something strange happened. At first, it was those snakes, but when they crawled halfway, they instantly changed their direction. Even the resentment of the puppets found it difficult to control them. It was as if something that they were afraid of suddenly appeared where Aju was standing. However, other than Aju, there was also the little white cat on her head. None of the Special Forces soldiers knew that it wasn't an ordinary white cat, but a mythical beast that could make all beasts turn their heads. It was one of the 4 legendary divine beasts, Bai Zai, that often appeared in paintings of the Wuxia era. When those snakes saw Bai Zai coming, they would definitely run away. Moreover, this time, Bai Zai did not hide its aura like before. Later on, even the puppets seemed to be intimidated by something. They just stood there trembling all over, without any chance to return. No. Impossible. It had been thousands of years. Even if that lord was not in the Buddhist world, he would still be in the demon world. It was absolutely impossible for him to be here. Moreover, that girl was clearly just an ordinary human. She did not attract the attention of the phoenix. But why could her body emit such a huge Buddhist light? Chapter 13:10. The problem legions also noticed the difference in Aju. Everyone turned around and looked behind them. Amidst the swirling fog, the girl's long black hair fluttered in the wind. Her pale thin lips seemed to be chanting Buddhist scriptures, and those scriptures floated in the air, forming words one after another. They were like blooming flower petals, twining around her, emitting a dazzling Buddhist light. And under her feet, there seemed to be golden lotuses blooming one after another. Phoenix, Phoenix, Wisdom King. The puppet seemed to be in disbelief. Its neck moved stiffly, and its eyes were filled with fear and shock. Who are you? Phoenix Wisdom King? Aju tilted her head. I don't know her. It's impossible that you don't know her. Behind you is her Dharma idol. The puppet even started to move its legs. How could this be? How could Phoenix's Dharma idol be on someone else? Unless you are. The puppet tilted its head and met Bai Zai's mocking gaze. It was immediately shocked. The answer was obvious. You. Why are you still bringing the 4 divine beasts? That's clearly one of the Emperor's mounts. Aju was annoyed by the questions. She said angrily, Who is the Emperor? Don't always jump out one name after another. Just now you wanted to kill little brother, right? I'll send you to reincarnate now to repay the sins you owe. We are innocent. The puppet still wanted to quibble. Sir, you are blessed by the true Buddha. You can't kill. We are all children who were killed by the ghost mother goddess back then. Shouldn't you reform us? Aju tilted her head and said with a serious expression, I'm sending you to reincarnate to reform you. They did not want to be reincarnated. They had not killed enough people, and had not taken revenge on those adults. They did not want to leave this place. At most, they would kill this person as well. In any case, she was blessed by the true Buddha. She could not see blood. In an instant, another layer of fog appeared. Aju narrowed her eyes, which were filled with Buddhist light. Such a strong evil aura, yet you still want to reform people. Humph. You want to deceive Buddha, Willie? You clearly want to kill people and lie. I'll send you to hell now. As she spoke, Aju moved her left hand, and the wind around her seemed to be listening to her call. Thousands of Buddhist lights surged out from the ground and rushed toward the wooden puppets. The illusory figures of the puppets all raised their hands to cover their eyes. However, they were no match for the purest Buddhist fate in the world. Even before they died, they still thought that it was Phoenix's aura. Only Phoenix could achieve Buddhahood through killing. Why did this little exorcist have the form of a phoenix? Why is this happening? And the Emperor's Bai Zai. It was a divine beast that should have belonged to the heavenly Tao. Even if the Emperor had fallen, it should have stayed with the Emperor in the demon world. Or perhaps he would stay by Phoenix's side. After all, it was said that Bai Zai's descendant had a new owner. But no matter what, It was impossible for that person to appear here. And there was a little exorcist with him? That exorcist, just who was she? Before the puppets died, they let out an ear-piercing and miserable scream. They wanted to regret underestimating this young girl, but they had no chance to regret it anymore. The Buddhist light descended from the sky and burned them into puddles of black water bit by bit. After the shadows formed by resentment disappeared, the puppets also began to decay at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if they had lost a layer of protective film and finally returned to their original solid state, revealing traces one after another. The fog also gradually dissipated. The sun shone through the leaves and into the forest. The soldiers looked at this scene in shock. What had they just experienced? Exorcism? A movie? Master Bai's wife could not only fight, but she could also exorcise ghosts? Was that what it meant? Why had Master Bai never told them when they were in military training in school? The soldiers collectively looked in Baijuan's direction. Only then did they realize that even their Master Bai was looking at Aju's back. His deep and beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to be narrowed. He could not say whether he was happy or unhappy. However, according to their understanding of Master Bai, even Master Bai himself definitely did not know that his wife could exorcise ghosts. Aju still did not know that her little brother was looking at her from behind. After burying everything that needed to be buried, she stretched out her hand and beckoned the white cat to leave. Baizé obediently put away the aura on its body. With a jump of its legs, it jumped onto Aju's head and wagged its tail. However, its eyes were looking at the Alaskan sled that was so afraid of it. The soldiers also noticed the abnormality of their pet. It did not have its usual domineering aura at all. Instead, all the fur on its body stood on end, and its claws were still trembling. Especially when the white cat looked at it, it actually trembled. Was this even a military dog? A large dog was actually afraid of a small white cat. The soldiers really did not want to see this embarrassing scene anymore. They decisively turned their heads and looked at their captain's little wife. Old Man was the first to speak. "Sister-in-law, you're so amazing. Can I acknowledge you as my teacher?" Sister-in-law? Aju's round eyes rolled around. She had never heard such a title before. Old Man explained, "Captain happens to be older than all of us, so we'll call you sister-in-law. It's reasonable." When Aju heard this explanation, she was happy. Her small face flushed red as she looked at Baijuan, and then at the old man. She praised him very seriously. "You have good taste." Of course, Old Man was not old himself, so he quickly formed a thought pattern with Aju. He proudly straightened his back and asked, "Sister-in-law, what were you doing just now?" These puppets became like this because of the remaining resentment. After chanting a few Buddhist scriptures and burying a yellow talisman, they can be sent to the underworld. They are all children killed when the ghost mother goddess massacred the city. Those children could not be freed, and they had hatred in their hearts, so they were bound to the puppets. Over time, they formed the resentment of 100 ghosts, which is the scene you saw just now. They like to drag adults down to accompany them. Once someone gets close, they will be affected by them. After Aju finished speaking, she ran in front of Baijuan. She raised her beautiful little face, meaning that she wanted Baijuan to wipe her sweat. Of course, Baijuan understood what she wanted to do. With a smile, he pulled her with one hand and used the back of his other clean hand to gently wipe her sweat. In the end, no matter how he looked at it, he felt that the girl he had carefully raised from a young age should not sweat. He leaned over and lowered his eyes, directly landing his thin lips on Aju's smooth and fair forehead. Chapter 13:11. Aju paused. She stretched out her two hands and covered her forehead. Her round tiger eyes widened as she said in a low voice, "No, I didn't say I wanted to kiss you. But if you want to kiss me, I won't refuse." After all, they were still newlyweds. Moreover, he had left as soon as they got married. She still owed him a honeymoon. When the mission was over, she would definitely make it up to him. Baijuan looked at her tiger-like appearance and laughed. He lowered his head again and kissed her. Looking at this scene, everyone was speechless. The soldiers could still accept it a little. That intelligence officer was simply petrified at the side. Well, what did their Lord Bai just do? He actually took the initiative to kiss a girl. And he even kissed her twice in a row. He seemed to be in a good mood. No, that wasn't right. He should be asking why he called this girl sister-in-law. There were too many questions, and the intelligence officer really didn't know which one to ask. He was so shocked that his jaw dropped as he stared blankly. Was that person who was looking at his family with a doting gaze really their Lord Bai? This was not right. He needed to be quiet. After all, whether it was in the army or on a mission, Lord Bai seemed to have no existence in his eyes. The sudden change really made people need time to digest. After dealing with those puppets, she was kissed by the little brother again. She was indescribably happy in her heart. She hugged Bai Juan's waist and rubbed her small face against him. She looked very comfortable. As expected, the smell on little brother's body smells good. The resentment just now was too smelly. It made my head hurt. It was precisely because of little brother's presence that she was able to attract the Buddhist light to her body. Such a strong sense of righteousness. She smelled it first to get rid of the blood smell on her body. Bai Juan looked at the person in his arms, who was constantly agitating. He knew that she was indeed uncomfortable, so he reached out and rubbed Aju's head. Aju felt comfortable after being rubbed. Her pair of round tiger eyes lit up again. Little brother, you should be an exorcist with me in the future. You're full of righteousness, so you're the most suitable exorcist. The few evil spirits who were standing 1 meter away nodded their heads solemnly. He was indeed suitable, so suitable that they didn't dare to go over. How could there be such a human in this world? He stood there like the sun, and his aura could burn ghosts to death. Bai Juan seemed to have noticed something behind Aju. Although he did not have the ability to identify ghosts, his natural sensitivity had already made those malicious ghosts shiver heavily. This man is so scary. Aju followed her little brother's gaze and looked over. She smiled with her eyes wide open. That's a toy my big brother gave me. He said that he caught it from the underworld. Little brother, can you see them? Hearing this, the problem core looked at each other. What was it that was caught from the underworld? Was there anyone else here other than them? Bai Juan tidied up his girl's messy hair and smiled faintly. I can't see, but I can feel something. As expected of little brother. Aju worshipped Bai Juan for everything. They have followed me all the way. Now that they see little brother, they must be afraid of the righteousness on little brother's body, and don't dare to come over. I will pack them up later. Otherwise little brother will burn them. They are usually quite obedient, and can eat little ghosts. When the time comes they can still be used. Aju had a habit since she was young. When she talked to Bai Juan, it was as if she was chanting Buddhist scriptures. Her mouth moved again and again as she muttered. Bai Juan and Li Hailu were used to it, but the rest of the people were a little confused. What them? What eating little ghosts? However, there was one problem that the old men in the army could understand. Just now we were controlled by those puppets. Only the captain was awake. Is sister-in-law talking about this? Aju looked at him and nodded. You also felt the righteousness all over little brother's body? They could only feel the cold air of the captain. For example, during training, he would run another 20 laps and so on. Also, the scene of the captain fighting a group of snakes alone, just now was especially like a war god. It was really not something that an ordinary person could do. Speaking of which, those snakes seemed to have disappeared. Would this place not be like that again? But at this time, Aju spoke again. I keep feeling that something is missing here. It was taken away by the enemy. We have to find the last person within 3 hours. The thing is on him. Bai Juan spoke in a deep voice. Once the mission was mentioned, his eyes returned to their usual coldness. Let's start to match now. Let's go find him. The intelligence officer was a little worried. But Captain, which direction should we go next? The instrument still couldn't be used. I have a way. Aju took out a compass from her large military backpack. This can locate yin and yang. If the thing is really in the hands of the enemy, the compass will automatically point to the direction of the most yin. We just need to follow the needle. It's the west. Let's complete the mission together. I finally met up with you guys. Just now. I was worried that you guys wouldn't be able to hold on until I came. I didn't expect that little brother was the troop that I wanted to support. As Aju spoke, She turned her head and hugged Baijuan, and rubbed against him like a silly little tiger. After hearing Ajiz's last sentence, the people of the problem army finally realized that she was wearing a military uniform, and that military uniform. The intelligence officer's eyes suddenly constricted. You are from the Tang sect? Yes. Aju tilted her head, and her tiger eyes were beautiful. Is there a problem? The old man was also shocked. Captain, how come we never knew that sister-in-law was from the Tang sect? Wasn't she still a student of university last time? I also want to ask this question. Baijuan pulled his girl over and said indifferently, now is not the time to talk about this. Let's find the thing first. Yes, the problem army knew their captain very well, so they could talk to relax their nervous mood just now. But at the same time, they could not forget that what they really wanted to do was to complete the mission. Ajiz's appearance also reminded them that this was not an ordinary mission. They did not know if they would face more unbelievable things next. However, there should be no problem. Just the fact that Aju could help them locate the direction had solved a big problem for them. Following the compass, their speed suddenly increased by a lot. But at this time, for some reason, the sky suddenly darkened. Even the wind brought a wet and sticky feeling. It was as if someone was standing beside them. Chapter 13:12. There was a pungent smell of blood. Even if she could not see clearly, she could still sense it. But the strange thing was that when she turned around, she could not see anyone. What was going on? Aju's round tiger eyes narrowed. She was about to speak. Just as she was about to open her mouth, a figure stretched out its claws and grabbed at her. Before Aju could react, Baijuan turned sideways and blocked in front of her, tightly protecting her in his arms. There was a tearing sound. It was Baijuan's military uniform that had been cut. No, it was not just the military uniform. It was clearly the sound of skin and flesh exploding. Aju was really angry. She clenched her fists tightly and was about to fly towards that person. Baijuan reached out and pulled her back, fixing her in his arms. His voice was very low, as if the injured person was not him at all. Be good, stay where I can touch you. Aju was unwilling to give up. She had to listen to her little brother again. She rolled her big eyes and directly scattered a few malicious spirits. As soon as the malicious ghosts came out, they were burned by the righteous energy on Baijuan's body. They all retreated a meter before saying, Little Master. What was that thing just now? You're kind. Aju had a small face, and her cheeks were bulging. To think that I used to think that you ghosts were quite cute. I didn't expect that you would hurt people. The malicious ghosts were speechless. When did they become cute? Ordinary people would be scared half to death when they saw them. Logically speaking, they should be gloomy as soon as they came out. They should drag people down to accompany them. The reason why they were so cute now was because the one who caught them was a devil. The one who accompanied them looked like a Buddha. But in fact, she was still a little devil. She was even more afraid than the devil. She always told them to be vegetarian with her. Vegetarian. Did she ever consider how they felt as malicious ghosts? Moreover, Little Master, you can't kill us with one blow. The ones who hurt your little brother were really not us. Aju narrowed her eyes. Anyway, she could not hurt her little brother. Go and catch that malicious ghost just now and eat it. Yes, Little Master. A few malicious ghosts flashed at the same time, bringing out a gloomy feeling that was much more than before. In fact, the malicious ghosts here could not compare to the evil aura on their bodies. After all, they had also come from the 18th level of hell. Of course, there were pros and cons. The advantage was that they were definitely older than the other party. Everyone knew that ghosts were more powerful the older they were. However, the downside was that they had stayed in the 18th level of hell for too long, and had not been stained with blood. He was afraid that it would take some effort to deal with the malicious spirits around the Mother Goddess's tomb. However, there was one thing that they didn't dare to tell the Little Master. That stupid ghost just now, without even looking, stretched out her claws and scratched the righteous man. He reckoned that it must be hiding in regret now. Perhaps its entire claw had been burned off. The specters were right. The ghostly shadow was indeed regretting its actions. It stared at its own black fingertips. That burning sensation made it want to tear everything apart. That man was clearly an ordinary human. It had just killed several humans and eaten their souls. Why was this human like this? It had to be said that the wandering ghosts in the outside world were nothing compared to the experienced ghosts in the 18 levels of hell. Those malicious ghosts had seen many people underground, so they naturally understood the situation. A person like Bai Juan was someone they would never touch even if they were beaten to death. Other than the 3 generations of their ancestors, they were also full of righteousness. Their hands were clearly stained with blood, but they were not tainted at all. Such a person was even more difficult to deal with than those from the heavenly Tao. To put it simply, if a person harmed him, he would die an unnatural death. If a ghost harmed him, he would die a horrible death. However, the more distant he was from the world, the easier it was for him to kill the people around him, or his lifespan was extremely short. In short, his life would be lonely, and he would not have a good ending. The malicious ghosts were still thinking that if their little master had not appeared, such a person would definitely be unhappy more than happy in this world. Or perhaps, he would feel that everything he did would be boring. His career and future were originally within reach for him. Not to mention women. But they also felt that this man was actually still a virgin. How much did he like the little master to be able to protect his body to such an extent? However, it was precisely because he was still a pure body that he could soothe the resentment on the little master's body to protect the little master's true Buddha body. Therefore, that stupid ghost just now could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke these 2 people. He was really courting death. A black whirlwind rose up. The 4 malicious ghosts surrounded the evil ghost who was still lamenting and pitying his arm in the middle. It was difficult for humans to find ghosts, but it was extremely easy for ghosts to find ghosts. That evil ghost looked at the malicious ghosts that suddenly appeared in front of him, and his fangs pierced out. He mumbled a bunch of words, all of which were in ghost language. The translation was, "We are all ghosts. It's fine if you don't help me, but why do you help those humans? Let's work together to kill all those humans, and then eat their souls, especially that little girl's soul. Haven't you noticed? How sweet is the aura on her body? Her soul must be very nutritious." When the 4 malicious ghosts heard its suggestion, their hands trembled in fear. Damn it, was there something wrong with this stupid ghost? The Buddhist fate on the little master was so obvious. Not only did she have the Phoenix Dharma idol, but she also had the divine beast by Zay. Although divine beasts were not very useful to malicious ghosts like them, they were mainly used to deal with ferocious beasts and demons. Damn it, after being a ghost for so many years, they had never heard of that little devil in the demon world. No, that's not right, it should be the big devil now. Was he a sister Khan and a brother Khan? If anyone dared to touch his sister or brother, he would make them regret it so much that their intestines would turn green before he swallowed them. In order to show that they had never wanted to eat the little master, the 4 malicious ghosts originally wanted to let this evil ghost go. Now that they heard this, without saying a word, he forced the evil ghost to the front of a Jew with both hands. "Little master, you can kill it. We definitely won't stop you." A Jew looked at the evil ghost that was emitting black fog, and was about to make a move. However, she was stopped by Bai Juan. Because the evil ghost's hand was stained with Bai Juan's blood, it had faintly revealed its original form. A Jew turned her head. She did not understand why her little brother was stopping her. However, Bai Juan's eyes darkened. That usually gentle and handsome face carried a viciousness that had never been seen before. Was this the thing that wanted to scratch you just now? Chapter 13:13. A Jew nodded her head. She still did not understand why the little brother wanted to stop her. Bai Juan moved his fingers, and his voice was a little deep. "You just said that the blood on my body can exorcise ghosts." "Yes." A Jew replied as she said, "Little brother, don't stop me. I have to influence this guy so that when it comes out in the future, it won't scratch randomly." Before a Jew could finish her words, there was a swoosh sound. Bai Juan cut his palm with the hand that was holding the knife. Then, without any hesitation, he turned his hand and stabbed at the malicious ghost that was covered in black fog. Originally, Things in the human world could not hurt ghosts at all. However, Baijuan's blood was different. When the evil ghost's heart was pierced, it only saw that Baijuan's eyes were cold and icy. They were like the ancient well water in the cemetery. There was not a single ripple. It was so cold that it made people tremble from the bottom of their hearts. This was the first time that the evil ghost had seen a human show such a gaze. Moreover, the one he killed was a ghost. Could it be that he was not afraid at all? The boiling blood followed the blade and seeped into the evil ghost's internal organs. There was no part of its body that was not in pain. Such a human was simply an existence that was even more terrifying than it was. Why didn't these people notice it? One thought was a god, and the other was a devil. What exactly was it that could make this man so cold to the bone? But there was a lingering gentleness in his eyes. Before the evil ghost died, it saw that the man pulled out his knife and walked in front of the girl. Then, he touched her head and said in a deep voice, "Anyone who wants to hurt you, I hope that I can personally get rid of it." That kind of righteousness. It turned out that he could kill ghosts when he met ghosts and gods when he met gods when he met gods. The evil ghost looked at the sky and opened its mouth because of the joy. The burning sensation devoured it again and again until its internal organs were burned to ashes. It did not even have the chance to go to hell to be reincarnated. It was directly beaten into ashes. The 4 malicious ghosts that a Jew had brought over also trembled when they saw this. He actually killed an evil ghost without batting an eyelid. At the beginning, these malicious ghosts only thought that Baijuan was an existence that could not be provoked, but they were not very afraid of him. After all, as long as they did not touch him, it would be fine. But who knew? When this man killed ghosts, he was simply terrifying without batting an eyelid. That action even seemed to carry a coldness that even an exorcist did not possess. What was even more frightening was that when he knew that his blood could exorcise ghosts, he didn't even think before cutting his own palm. Not only was he ruthless to his enemies, but he was also ruthless to himself. This kind of person was very suitable to be a devil. Shouldn't he stand in the light and be full of righteousness? The evil spirits were now rejoicing over the fact that they had not provoked this man earlier. Little Master was right. He was too suitable to be an exorcist. In this case, there was simply no need to bring any exorcism artifacts, because he himself was an artifact. However, Aju did not think so. She looked at Baijuan's left hand that was hanging down, and her big tiger eyes were filled with heartache. Baijuan followed her gaze and looked over. He reached out and rubbed Aju's head. It's just a small injury. Compared to these, what he couldn't tolerate was the way the evil ghost looked at Aju just now. He shouldn't have killed that evil spirit so quickly. He should have let it experience the true meaning of pain bit by bit. Although Baijuan had already made Aju not care, he also raised his hand and let her bandage his wound for him. However, Aju still felt bad in her heart. She was already here, but she still let little brother get injured. She was too useless. Her mother had said that after getting married, she had to protect her other half well. Little brother was so good-looking, and he was always missed by people. Now even ghosts would not let him go. In the future, she definitely could not let her guard down. She had to protect little brother well. Aju told herself so. She did not care what the wrong positioning was. For the rest of the journey, she walked in front, and let Baijuan follow behind her. Of course, their hands were still held together. When the problem soldiers saw this, they all expressed that sister-in-law. The captain's injury was really nothing to him. You really didn't have to treat him like a porcelain doll. Moreover, where could you find such a cold and murderous porcelain doll? In the future, the ones who should be protected were those ghosts. The 4 black fog-filled things behind you seemed to be trembling all the way. Did you really not see how afraid they were of the captain? Only you would treat the captain as a porcelain doll. The problem soldiers who had been shown off their love complained while not forgetting to move forward quickly. If we continue forward, we will reach the border. Li Hela's forehead was full of sweat. Where exactly is that guy? Baijuan's eyes narrowed and his ears twitched. He turned his eyes to look at the small cluster of forest that was not far away, and looked over fiercely. He lowered his voice and said, 8 o'clock on the left in front. Be quiet and fast. Surround and attack. With his order, the 6 of them quickly raised their guns and spread out. The one walking at the end of the forest was one of the enemy troops who had invaded this time. His face was covered in blood and sweat. Along the way, he had experienced a fear that he had never experienced before. After he finished this business, he would never step into the territory of Wuxia again. Other than those blade soldiers who had forced them into a corner, there were also too many strange things here. A total of 18 of them had come. Each of them was a top-notch expert, but now he was the only one left. They also knew that there was a person in the Wuxia army who could not be underestimated. As long as this person was around, they would not be able to walk in easily and walk out easily. Viper. He had once seen that person shoot from afar when he was crossing Burma. He also knew the record that Viper had set. If it were not for Viper, they would not have encountered such a situation. They could have taken the things and left, but because of Viper, they had no choice but to abandon the jeep and the plane. In the end, only he was still alive. The intruder hugged the thing in his hand tightly. As long as he persisted a little longer, he would be able to cross the national defense line. At that time, even if Viper rushed here, they would not dare to shoot. Wuxia was so cowardly. Unlike them, they did not have to abide by so many treaties. Thinking of this, the corners of the intruder's mouth could not help but reveal a hint of contempt and complacency. However, at this moment there was a swoosh. Chapter 13-14. A long knife cut through the wind and stabbed straight into the center of the intruder's eyes. If he hadn't dodged in time, the knife would have cut off his arm. The intruder turned around and saw a group of people in a square formation with 4 corners in the north, south, east, and west. They had already firmly trapped him in this small area. The person in the lead was the Special Forces soldier they had never wanted to meet, codenamed Viper. Until now, he did not know the other party's name, where he was from, or how old he was. He only knew that Viper was very young, but he was so vicious that it was difficult to ignore him. The intruder licked his tongue and took another step forward. He had crossed the line. As long as he crossed the line, they could not do anything to him. Baijuan also noticed this. It was obvious that this intruder was taking advantage of the international contract. Once he crossed the line of defense, they would be violating the contract if they shot him again. They could not make a move. At the very least, they could not rashly make a move. When the intruder saw that Baijuan did not raise his hand to shoot at him, he raised his head and laughed loudly. You Chinese people, no matter how many years have passed, are all sick men of East Asia. His intonation was very strange, with a unique exotic Chinese accent. It made Baijuan's eyes suddenly sink. If you have the ability, then shoot me. Not to mention shooting me to death. Even if you shoot me, your entire team will have to go to the military court. If you become a citizen of our country, it will be much better than what you are now. In that case, we can sit down, drink a cup of black beer, and pick up a few girls. Alright, the girls in your country are also very good at sleeping. As long as they see Western faces like us, they will scramble to pounce on us. Ha 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 ha. It's really a waste not to sleep with them. The one beside you is not bad. I'll let it go this time. Let's meet again next time. Next time we'll meet again. Every word of the intruder was challenging the background of the problem army. Li Hela's hands were clenched so tightly that they made cracking sounds. The old man picked up his weapon and wanted to rush forward. You can't go over. Baijuan blocked with his arm. His feet are on the other side of the national defense line. The old man gritted his teeth. Then we can only watch this bastard leave? Captain, I can't do it. I'll go over. Isn't it just going to court? When the time comes, just say that it's my fault. I'll do it. Motherfucker. I can't stand such a piece of trash speaking in front of us. Even if someone has to go to court, that person shouldn't be you. Baijuan glanced sideways, and a cold light flashed across his eyes. Aju also knew about the contract. Her round eyes rolled around as she held Baijuan's hand and said, Little brother, I'll let the ghost deal with him. This way no one will know. No. Baijuan rejected Aju's suggestion without thinking. Aju was stunned. The 2 strands of hair on her head were still standing up. Why? All of your abilities should be used to deal with wraiths and demons. Bai Zhuan lowered his eyes and raised his hand to rub her little face. If you can't deal with humans, it will affect your true Buddha and ruin your merit. Hearing this, Aju stopped talking. A few wraiths were talking in ghost language not far away from her. Little master, this man is right. You can't instruct us to deal with humans. That will result in bad consequences. In the end, the bad consequences will befall you and affect your body. Aju knew all of this, but she would rather be in poor health than let her little brother be mocked like this. He was supposed to be an indomitable person who had always been standing in the clouds. This time, because of the treaty, he could not make a move. Aju puffed up her cheeks and looked at the intruder with her round tiger eyes. She wanted to remember this person's appearance and settle the score in the future. However, Bai Zhuan did not plan to wait until the future. Wuxia was his home, a place where his girl was. That intruder not only humiliated the girls of Wuxia, but also his girl. How could he let him leave this place alive? With a swoosh, Bai Zhuan pulled open his military jacket, took off the military rank on his shoulder, and threw the gun aside. He kicked off his military boots and stepped on the ground barefoot. From now on, I am no longer a soldier of Wuxia. It's just me, Bai Zhuan. As he spoke, he raised his eyes and looked coldly at the intruder. Lux, do you really think that Wuxia is a place where you can come and go as you please? I put on this military uniform to protect this land. If one day this military uniform becomes an obstacle to me protecting this land, then I would rather take it off. The eyes of the intruder named Lux shook. All the pride he had just now turned into a stiff expression at the corner of his mouth. If it was just a competition of fists and feet, he could not compare to Viper at all. Wait a minute, no, he could still shoot. That's right, he could still shoot. The intruder reached out and raised the gun. Bang! 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 One of the shots pierced through Bai Zhuan's arm, but in the next second, he still flipped over and kicked away the gun in Lux's hand. His movements were fast, ruthless, and accurate. There were no unnecessary tricks, but every movement carried the force of the wind. Just like that, he allowed his arm to bleed as he directly pinched the intruder's throat. There was a creaking sound. Lux did not even have the chance to resist before his throat was forcefully crushed. He widened his eyes and looked at Bai Zhuan's face that was right in front of him. He finally saw Viper's appearance clearly. He was so handsome that he was like a legendary god. But such a person actually chose to be a special forces soldier. He actually took off his military uniform and destroyed his own future in order to protect those illusory things? He did not understand. So what if he let him go? He had already come to this point. Did Viper really want to kill him? Even if he really let him go, Viper had a reason to explain to the higher-ups. After all, he had already crossed the national defense line with 1 foot. Why? Why didn't he let him go? Why did he have to kill him? Lux really did not understand. He did not understand even more. The Chinese's saying was never casually said. Those who offend China will be killed no matter how far away they are. Even if you don't understand, don't make things difficult for me. I ban this classmate of mine. This classmate has both new and old books. After reading the pirated version, he came to urge me to update. I really don't support him. Don't come to comment and extinguish my enthusiasm for writing. Once I see that kind of comment, I really don't want to update. Do you know? Chapter 13-15. Before he died, he only realized one thing, and that was that what people had advised him was not wrong. He should not have come to this border guarded by poisonous snakes. Because no matter how high the chances of winning were, that person could also make you come and go without returning. It was already over for regret. Lux did not become that accident. Instead, as soon as he died, his soul was dragged down by the surrounding malicious spirits and torn into several pieces. Aju looked at Bai Zhuan's bleeding arm. She finally knew why there were always so many wounds on his body. Even if she said that she wanted to check, he was just joking. He would not really let her touch his wounds. She still remembered that when he was young, his body was the cleanest. It was good everywhere, especially the back. At that time, she was still very young and had peeked at him bathing. At first, his face was very red. In the end, He allowed her to bring her little wooden fish and soak in the bathtub with him. At that time, she truly understood that their body structures were indeed different. Aju had always felt that a person like her little brother should be perfect and flawless. He was beautiful everywhere. Because her little brother was indeed like that. Learning came first. Swimming came first. Playing games also came first. There was nothing that her little brother was not good at. Later, her little brother wanted to be a soldier. Not only for the Bai family, but also for her. Aju blinked her big eyes, which were red. She used the back of her hand to cover her little nose. With a stern face, she did not cry. She just squatted there and bandaged Bai Juan's wound. She kept hugging Bai Juan's uninjured arm and said in a dignified manner, "I'll listen to you well in the future. I'll do whatever you say." Silly girl. Bai Juan stretched out a hand and rubbed her soft cheek. This was the first time that he felt warmth in his heart after carrying out a mission. It was really good to have such a person by his side. The warmth that was within reach was really good. With such a person at the first moment, no matter what, she would always care about you. It was enough. He did not need his girl to be so obedient. Why did she have to be so obedient? She could do whatever she wanted. He had the right to dote on his girl. Bai Juan turned his eyes and kissed Aju's head. Then he reached out and hugged her in his arms. Anyway, she didn't mind that he was covered in blood. Even after witnessing his life, she would not think that the two of them were not compatible. In my lifetime I met you. He was truly blessed, no one disturbed them. At this moment, everyone knew that their captain needed such an embrace. The people in the problem army looked at the military uniform that Bai Juan had placed on the ground. Their captain was very likely to be dismissed. But no matter what, the mission was completed. They killed all the invaders and recovered the secret. The secret was divided into two parts. In addition to a very old scroll of paper that was contained in a bamboo tube, the rest was a pure black ring. The shape of the ring was very strange. It didn't look like something worn by an ancient king, and there were no records of it in history. As for which of these two items should be taken back, and which should not be taken back, the Corps had no clue at all. After all, the higher-ups had instructed them to only take back one secret. Aju also stood there and studied the two things. She looked at them with her round tiger eyes for a long time. Suddenly, she raised her hand and knocked on her head. I remember where I've seen such a ring before. Where? The problem army collectively turned their heads to look at Aju. Aju's exquisite little face revealed a trace of contemplation. In my house my father has several such rings. My big brother also has one. Sometimes they wear it. The problem army decisively did not take this answer seriously. Bai Juan raised his eyebrows. His lips were a little pale because of the loss of blood. Your father's thing? It's a little similar. The tip of Aju's nose twitched, and her face was full of certainty. The aura is also similar. 90% of it is his. No one can have a stronger demonic aura than my father. Bai Juan had never forgotten the first time he saw Aju's father. That man did not seem to belong to this world. He wore black gloves on his hands. Just by standing there, it was as if he could make all the objects lose their beauty. There was also the master's reaction at that time, and the speed of his father-in-law's walking. Bai Juan even suspected that he did not walk at all. Instead he flew. Perhaps even if he flew, he would not be as fast as him. He thought that his girl had been fated with Buddha since she was young. She was blessed by the true Buddha. Because it was inconvenient at home, she was sent to the temple. Did that inconvenient refer to the fact that the demonic aura and the Buddhist aura were incompatible? In other words, his father-in-law, CEO Ju, who even today made the CEOs of the business world tremble in fear, was actually very likely a demon? However, why is your father's thing here? And it was placed together with the confidential documents. Bai Juan's eyes flashed. Could it be that this ring should have been placed where we passed by just now? Yes. Aju hugged Bai Juan's waist. Little brother, you're so smart. Why didn't I think of that? I seem to have become too stupid recently. Father's things are here. The demonic aura is so strong that it has suppressed the resentment that covers this land all year round, forming a relative balance. Just now, this guy took away father's ring, breaking this balance. That's why the resentment surged up and formed such a thick fog. Especially since this is the tomb of the Japanese mother goddess. Those living beings will also be affected. They crazily absorb the resentment, and then continue to grow. Back then, Father must have also placed this ring here, so that the Japanese mother goddess would never see the light of day. Speaking of which, Father and the Japanese mother goddess still had some grudges. He had beaten her until her soul was scattered. However, the Japanese mother goddess was a Buddha after all. Her remnant thoughts affected this place. She must have been waiting for an opportunity to be resurrected. However, with Father's ring, she would never be resurrected. This was because it was impossible for a place with strong demonic aura to produce a Buddhist fate. Yes, Father was as ruthless as ever. The problem core were already dumbfounded when they heard this. Father? Demonic aura? Buddhist fate? A Jew also knew that they did not understand, so she said with a fierce face. In short, as long as we put the ring back to its original place, the living beings here will also return to their original appearance. This was the principle of all things reinforcing and restraining each other. As expected, after listening to Aju's words and putting the ring back to the puppet's location, the forest completely cleared up. Those snakes also no longer surged over crazily. Everything returned to its original appearance. Their mission this time was really completed. However, did the completion of the mission mean that they were going to separate? Chapter 13:16. The problem soldiers turned their heads, looking like they wanted to say something but hesitated. Especially Li Heila's gaze. He looked at Bai Juan, and then at Aju. He knew that for Bai Juan, no kind of punishment could be worse than Aju leaving him. But it was indeed about time. They had to go back and report. Master Bai. Li Heilu licked his dry lips and said, "We should go." Aju she. Originally, it was very difficult to say goodbye. Unexpectedly, Aju immediately took it. Her pair of tiger eyes were round. "I'll go with you guys too. The mission was completed too quickly. I still have a lot of time. I can go and see which army little brother is in. Don't reject me. The people of the Tang sect have the right to enter any army. Let's go. If there aren't enough seats on the plane, I'll sit in little brother's arms. I still have to bring instant noodles for my senior brothers and sisters." Sometimes, when Aju spoke, she was like a little monk chanting Buddhist scriptures. Her face was fair and tender, and her small mouth kept muttering. Moreover, when she said these words, she kept dragging her big backpack. She looked very cute. When the problem soldiers heard that, they felt that it was right. The Tang sect had the right to enter and leave any army. They were immediately happy. They turned around and said to Bai Juan, "Master Bai, now you can bring sister-in-law home. Let those people know that you are not gay at all." Gay. When Aju heard this word, she immediately raised her head. Her big tiger eyes sparkled as she looked at Bai Juan. Bai Juan pressed her head into his arms and hugged her with one hand. "Don't listen to these people's nonsense. It's not that we're talking nonsense. It's those people in the army who are suspecting you." The problem soldiers looked at each other, and some of them had bad looks on their faces. "You've never touched a woman, right? Those people who confessed to Master Bai didn't even care about them. I'm a married man. Why should I care about the girls outside?" Bai Juan asked in a very calm voice. "Don't think that I don't know what you guys have done in the past." The problem soldiers' backs trembled. All of them fell silent, but there was still a sneaky smile on their faces. He had thought that there would be nothing left for him to do at this point. Unexpectedly, Aju turned her head and looked at them with her tiger eyes. "Little brother, what have they done? Have they taken you to a bad place? I knew that there were many people who would destroy our relationship. But little brother, don't worry. When we return to the army, I will teach them a good lesson. The next time someone takes you to a bad place, I will take a photo of him and make him unable to find a wife for the rest of his life." The problem army. Wait a minute. That last move was too ruthless. Good girl. Bai Juan patted his girl's head and laughed. "You heard it. Don't lead me astray in the future." The problem legions. Who is the one who led who astray? Did Lord Bai need to be led astray? He was bad to the bone. And other than the fact that he didn't get close to women, he was worse than anyone else. Little brother, I believe you. A Jew raised her small face and said seriously, it's not easy for you to come out of the mud without being stained. The problem legions. This topic couldn't be discussed any further. They would definitely vomit blood. Well, sister-in-law, I've been wanting to ask since just now. Your military school bag is so bulging. Is it filled with a lot of special weapons from the Tang sect? This sentence was said by the old man. A Jew shook her head. No, it's all food. Oh right, I've been hungry since just now. I'll eat some biscuits to fill my stomach first. As she said that, she really opened the big military school bag and took out the things. She raised her hand and gave Baizhuan a jar of red date 8 treasures porridge. Little brother, drink this. It's to replenish your blood. Baizhuan took it and held it in his hand. He did not open it immediately. The problem legions at the side were really dumbfounded. Who didn't carry guns or landmines on a mission, but a lot of food. A Jew held a biscuit in her mouth and asked them if they wanted to eat it. Seeing that no one moved, she carried the big school bag again. Thus along the way, the problem legions saw a Jew eating. Moreover, when she ate, she did not forget to give their captain a bite. This show of affection was too eye-catching. Military planes usually flew very quickly. It did not take long for them to reach Baizhuan's army from the border. However, people had not forgotten the fact that he had taken off his military uniform. Once he took off that uniform, it was very likely that the captain would no longer be a soldier. The young man turned his eyes and looked at the handsome and noble side profile of their captain. For some reason, his throat felt a little uncomfortable. He thought that perhaps this was the case. Under the flourishing age, when ordinary people were enjoying their peaceful years, when those people were still looking forward to love and happiness, there would always be people who would carry a heavy burden and move forward for the light of the homes. They would use their lives as blades and stain their hands with blood. They would not forget the past and would not be afraid of the future. Their captain was such a hero. Of course, a Jew knew what these problem legions were worried about. But she did not think that there was anything to worry about. If her little brother could not stay in the original army, she would poach him to the Tang sect. It was decided. She would report to her senior brothers and sisters in a while. If they did not agree, she would not bring them instant noodles. However, according to Ajiz's understanding of them, instant noodles could be above everything. There was nothing that a box of instant noodles could not solve. If there was then 2 boxes. In short, she would bribe all her senior brothers and sisters. It was just that a Jew felt that the original army here might not let Brother Xiao go. When she was in the Tang sect, she had already heard of little brother's battle achievements. Apart from his merits, little brother's family background determined that he would be a chief in the future. Moreover, the chief of the original army was already handing over the important position to him. She might not be able to poach him away. When a Jew thought of this, her usually fair and tender little face actually had a hint of melancholy. Not enough to eat? This question was asked by Baizhuan. There was still a faint smell of blood on his body, but it did not smell bad at all. Instead, the way he bent his knees was especially masculine, and that handsome face that would make a Jew feel that it was good-looking whenever she looked at it. She wanted to rub against little brother again. She would rub against him when she returned to the army. Seeing that she did not answer, Baizhuan simply picked up a small spoon and made a mouthful of red date porridge for her. He fed it into her mouth and coaxed her in a low voice. We'll be there in 3 minutes. When we reach the army, let them steam big buns for us to eat. Speaking of which, a Jew had been out for so long. It was indeed time for her to be hungry. A child's stomach could not help but be hungry. A Jew also realized that no matter how old she was, her little brother would always raise her like this. This would not do. She had to let her little brother realize that she was an adult and had the ability to pounce on him. Chapter 13-17. When the military plane landed, many people surrounded it. Basically, they were all soldiers in the army. Every time Master Bai went out, they would be worried. Although they did not know what mission Master Bai was carrying out, such a mission was definitely not simple. This time was the same. When they saw that Bai Juan was covered in blood, they immediately rushed over. Of course, there were female soldiers inside. After all, the troops here were different from other troops. The Crown Prince's army was the most numerous. However, what surprised those soldiers who liked to cause trouble was that Master Bai was actually supported down by a young girl. Supported by a young girl? Did he not shake off the other party's hand? There was even a faint smile on his face. They had followed Master Bai for so long. Why didn't they know that Master Bai would smile like this? It was either a cold smile, an evil smile, or a half smile. No matter what kind of smile it was a sign that they were going to be specially trained. But this time, they actually saw gentleness in Master Bai's eyes. Gentleness? Master Bai still had that kind of thing? It must be because they had greeted the plane the wrong way. The female military doctors beside them also saw a Jew. Some were envious, while others were subtle. That's right, it was indeed subtle. A Jew also saw it. After thinking for a moment, she also knew that her little brother was going to take the confidential documents that he had snatched back and immediately report back. Therefore, she did not say anything. She only called Li Hailu to the side when he was still laughing with his hands on the shoulders of the soldiers. Brother Hailu, I want to ask you something. Li Hailu had been a little tyrant since he was young. When he grew up, he was also a playboy. However, he had never shown that side of him in front of a Jew. He would always treat a Jew like this. Tell me, I'm listening. What do you want to ask? A Jew had a serious look on her little tiger face. Was someone among those people peeping at you just now? Peeping? Those people? Li Hailu paused for a moment. Then, he thought of the scene at the airport just now and immediately said, Are you talking about those female military doctors? Yes. A Jew sat cross-legged, looking very serious in a meeting. Li Hailu also sat with her. But in his heart, he thought that he had to slander his good friend no matter what. He sighed leisurely and said, To be honest, a Jew, it's fortunate that you came. In fact, for so many years, it has always been your brother Hailu who has been protecting your little brother from women. I've been watching him for you for so many years. You don't know that every woman who comes here is interested in your little brother. However, this can't be helped. After all, Bai Juan is indeed handsome. I admit this, so a Jew, don't blame your little brother too much. Li Hailu wanted to see little Herculean's jealous expression. If he could help his good friend with some trouble, it would be best for him to have some fun. Who would have thought that after hearing his words, a Jew actually cupped her small face with both hands and said decisively, I got it. What do you know? Li Hailu was a little confused when he heard this, so he decided to ask shamelessly. A Jew carried her school bag very seriously and stood up. I want to sleep with my little brother, so that he can have a sense of belonging. Li Hailu was speechless. Master Bai was a man. Why would he want a sense of belonging? Also, wait a minute, what did you just say? Sleep with Master Bai. Li Hailu was really dumbfounded this time. A Jew's thoughts had never changed since she was young. She would say whatever she wanted. It was probably because of this that she firmly controlled Master Bai. After all of Master Bai's twists and turns did not seem to be very powerful in front of a Jew. But he clearly wanted to sow discord. Why did it become a Jew wanting to sleep with someone? Did he indirectly become a godly assistant? Li Hailu touched his chin. Not bad. He was looking forward to seeing Master Bai being pushed down by someone. Speaking of which, no matter how powerful Bai Juan was usually, his strength was definitely not comparable to a Jew's. This was going to be a good show. Li Hailu chuckled and followed her. He tactfully arranged for a Jew to enter Bai Juan's room. Every time after returning from a mission, Master Bai would have to stay by himself for 3 days. It just so happened that he could use it now. Of course, there was also one unhappy thing, which was the examination that they had to face every time they returned. After carrying out a mission, they would go through some necessary interrogation. The results of each interrogation would indicate whether they were suitable to carry out a mission again. Some people would have a mental breakdown because of this, while others would be suspected. They were still fine because Bai Juan had been under a lot of pressure, so they did not need to be so tired. In fact, the special forces were like this. When they carried out missions outside, Some people would always be a little worried that they would betray them. After all, the border was too important. It was just that if they asked too much, it was inevitable that they would be a little disappointed. Li Hailu only hoped that there would be a breakthrough to solve this matter. Pa. The lights were turned on. Bai Juan sat in the room with an indifferent expression. His left hand was still injured, but this did not affect him from turning his head and lighting a cigarette. He looked at the few chiefs and a psychiatrist opposite him and curled his lips into a smile. What do you want to ask? You can ask. Why are you using a light on me? Old Zhao was the first to cough. With a press of his finger, the incandescent lamp was extinguished. You took off your military uniform and did it. This question was a question for Bai Juan. Bai Juan nodded. I didn't take a gun and took off my military uniform. It's a personal grudge. You can't say that. It was a diplomat. The other side won't accept such an explanation. You have to tell me what personal grudge you have with Lawrence. Bai Juan raised his eyebrows and said in a very indifferent voice, he shot me. And I was defending myself. Also, Secretary Lin, explaining to the outside world is what you should do as a diplomat. Don't tell me you still want me to teach you? The diplomat's face turned pale, and he was vaguely angry. Chief Zhao, Bai Juan is right. This is a diplomatic matter. You guys go and worry about it. We soldiers are big bores. How can we know so much? Chief Zhao waved his hand. All right. I'm going to take him down to eat. You guys should go and do what you need to do. Do you really need old Master Bai to personally come out? The diplomat thought about the other party's identity and was indeed afraid. He shrank his neck back. Bai Juan tilted his head and smiled. He tidied up his clothes and stood up. He said, Today's steamed buns are vegetarian. Steam more. Chief Zhao was speechless. Bastard. Did he look like a chef in the kitchen? He was his chief. Did the chief understand? Forget it. Seeing that this kid had made a great contribution to their army, old Zhao would tolerate him. Chief Zhao took a deep breath and hung up the phone to the kitchen. Tell them that the steamed buns are vegetarian today. It's not that I want to eat. It's your Master Bai who wants to eat. Chapter 13:18. When the kitchen heard that Bai Juan wanted to eat, they did not even listen to what the chief was going to say next. They directly hung up the phone and began to knead the dough. Chief Zhao was speechless. The diplomat took a sip of tea and still wanted to sow discord. Old Zhao, it seems that your prestige in the army. Before he could finish, Chief Zhao raised his hand and said very domineeringly, I like to spoil the soldiers under me, not to mention the soldiers who are going to take over my position. Do you have anything else to say? If there's nothing else, then leave. Be careful on the way. You know that my prestige is not enough. If those bastards slash your tires again, don't blame me. When the diplomat heard this, he remembered that the last time he came to this army, the smell of the urine of more than 10 military dogs started the car. Immediately, his expression changed drastically, and he rushed out. Chief Zhao leisurely took a sip of tea and felt that something was wrong. Bai Juan was a worrisome person. Why didn't he do anything this time and let the diplomat leave? In the past, he had always used sinister tricks one after another. This time, when he came back, he only said that he wanted the kitchen to make vegetarian buns? Something was wrong. Chief Zhao was also an old fox. After sensing the problem, he immediately hung up the phone with his secretary. Little Wang, what's going on with Bai Juan today? What did you say? He brought back a girl. Chief Zhao immediately stood up. He was still wearing his military uniform. His usual awe-inspiring aura instantly turned into surprise. He can walk with a girl. He must be bluffing. Chief, it's true. Everyone in the company saw it. Now, that little girl has been arranged to stay in the small house where Master Bai lives alone. She's especially beautiful and has a cat on her head. She doesn't look like the kind of girl that Master Bai would like at all. It's really strange. Chief Zhao listened to his secretary's report and nodded a few times with a serious expression. After hanging up the phone, he couldn't hold it in anymore and called the adjutant in. He wanted to see which girl could get close to Bai Juan. Moreover, didn't that kid say that he had solved his personal problem when he came back this time? However, that kid's words couldn't be trusted. Ever since he entered the army, he had said that he had a lover, but he hadn't called anyone. Chief Zhao thought as he walked out. He wanted to see who the girl who was brought here was. A Jew was sitting in the room assigned to her by the army. The room was not big, and the things to put in it was limited. Like Bai Zhuan's room, there was only to be a bed, a bookshelf and a writing desk. There were books on the writing to do, fighting to fight, and some foreign blood-sucking novels in English. She to help her to the bed. To the bed to bed to the bed to the bed to the bed. To the bed to the bed to study to bed. She was studying the bed. It was a very small single bed, and it was a very hard wooden bed. To the bed to the bed to the bed to the was to the two to the two to the two. To the was to the bed to the. However, the blanket was not soft enough. It was placed on the bed with edges and corners. A Jew rubbed her face against it, and decided to take a shower first. Otherwise, if she continued to rub against him, she would dirty his place. With this thought in mind, a Jew opened her backpack, and took out the only other travel suit. Then she opened the wardrobe next to her. Oh, a Jew had a small face. In the end, she chose a camouflage uniform. After taking a shower, I'll wear your clothes first. The white cat under her feet glanced at the camouflage uniform that she took out. It had to be said that it was very big. Although the little master was no longer as petite as when she was young, her legs were long and slender. However, this military uniform did not fit her. It was too big. Of course, as a male cat, Little White would automatically turn around and not look at the little master's gestures. However, in a place like the army, there was usually no separate bathroom in the room. If one wanted to take a shower, they would go to a place like the public bath. They would all be drenched in the rain. The men were in the east, and the women were in the west. The women's room was not big. After all, in the army, other than the art soldiers and military doctors who would come, the rest of the time, this place was not very lively. However, during this period of time, the military doctors had been practicing with the army and had been living here. When the female soldiers who were carrying wash basins saw a Jew come in, their hands paused for a moment. Then they looked at each other. Some of them smiled at a Jew in a very friendly manner. 3 to 4 female soldiers raised their eyebrows and looked at a Jew. One of them was pretty and had a good temperament. She was pushed forward by her friend. That person looked at a Jew and spoke. There was nothing wrong with what he said, but his attitude was a little high. We are all very curious about you. We don't know where you came from. How did you get off the plane with Major Bai and the others? Were you saved by them on the way? If you were saved, then it could be explained. However, I see that you are also a soldier, so I want to advise my sister that Major Bai is a man with a family. He doesn't like people pestering him. You should be more careful in the future. That's right. Even if Major Bai said that having a family is an excuse, it has to be something that our Zixian should be concerned about. The person next to her smiled and said, You probably don't know anything when you just arrived. Zixian and Major Bai have talked before, and she really likes Major Bai. She is planning to confess to Major Bai. I say, sister, don't just come here and want to get involved. When a Jew heard these words, she frowned angrily. She looked at the few of them and said, Just now you said that Major Bai might have a family. If he has a family, why did you still confess to him? Love is free. The person named Zixian blushed slightly. And I believe that even if Major Bai really has a wife, he probably doesn't like his wife. It's just that his family urged him to consider the issue of marriage. Otherwise, he would have been in the army for so long, and no one would have come to look for him. So, I still decided to confess and give myself a chance. Aj's big tiger eyes narrowed into a line. If they weren't in love, they would have gotten divorced long ago. You're not giving yourself a chance. You're simply trying to get involved with someone else. You. Zixian took a deep breath. You won't understand my feelings for Major Bai. Since you think so, it seems that you won't make a move on Major Bai. Also, I'll say it again. Even if Major Bai has a wife, he doesn't like her. A marriage without a foundation of feelings shouldn't exist at all. However, Major Bai's identity makes it impossible for him to get a divorce just like that. Chapter 13:19. Aju put down the thing in her hand and raised her eyebrows. Have you seen Major Bai's wife? So what if we haven't seen her before? We can guess a thing or two even if we haven't seen her before. That's right. The few women echoed each other and spoke in a calm manner, as if they were in the right. Aju's round tiger eyes were now filled with coldness. She glanced at those people, and her voice turned cold. To be honest, you soldiers who rely on relationships are indeed not very smart. Moreover, your thinking is also very strange. You haven't seen me before, so how do you know that little brother doesn't like me? Who else said that our marriage has no emotional basis? I've known little brother since I was 5 years old. When little brother fed me, you didn't even know where you were. This is the army, and I don't want to make a move. Since you're wearing that military uniform, no matter how you got in, at the very least, you have to be worthy of it. Those women listened to Aju's words, and their expressions froze. They never thought that the girl in front of them was Major Bai's legendary wife. All of them did not know what to say next. They packed their things and wished that they could run out of the bathtub immediately. Zixuan's expression was even more stiff. She stood there in a daze. The other female soldiers looked over and covered their mouths to laugh. In front of his real wife, she said that his relationship was not good. She even mentioned divorce. Who knew that they were childhood sweethearts? This slap in the face is really embarrassing. There were always 3 or 4 black sheep in any place. The other female soldiers had long felt that there was something wrong with their style, and did not like to be with them. However, they did not make any mistakes in principle. They just missed men. Even if they did not like them, they could not say anything. Now that they heard this girl speak and slap those people in the face, it would also make them stop for the next 2 days. With some power and beauty, they did not care about anything and hooked up with others. It was really quite dislikable. After Aju dealt with Zixuan, she began to reflect on herself. Why didn't she pounce on the little brother earlier? She decided that she had to pounce on him today, so that she would not be missed all the time. Baijuan did not know what had happened at the bathtub. In fact, he had not even seen the group of female military doctors. Just as Li Hailu had said, as long as Baijuan wore a straight military uniform and stood there with gloves on his hands, people would be attracted to him. Such a person should have been surrounded by thousands of flowers. Unfortunately, he had never been surrounded by flowers. He did not even give the other party any room for fantasy. It was normal for someone to take a fancy to him. However, Baijuan would notice some of them and directly ask them to get lost. Some of the people that Baijuan could not detect were those that he did not even notice who they were. In fact, he rarely cared about anything other than his girl and his mission. Although there was one more thing today, and that was the opening of the kitchen. Before he got off the plane, he knew that Aju was hungry. However, the meals served in the army were basically the same. Therefore, Baijuan specially went to the kitchen and took a hot steamed bun before returning to his room. When he pushed open the door, he saw Aju with long hair. She was wearing his shirt, which just happened to be above her thighs. It was precisely because of this that her 2 legs appeared even more excessively fair. Baijuan's eyes darkened. He saw that his girl was holding a hair dryer to dry her hair. Her sleeves were too long, and when she moved, she was a little clumsy. She was like a little tiger chasing after its tail. Baijuan smiled when he saw this. He walked over and took the hairdryer. Then, he handed the steamed bun to her. Eat it. I'll help you dry it. When Aju saw that her little brother had returned, of course she was happy. In addition, there was something to eat. She held the big steamed bun with 2 claws and sat on the only wooden chair. As she chewed, she said in a rather distressed tone, "Little brother, you don't have to dry it too much. My hair is too long and is always knotted. I can't comb it. I'll help you comb it later." Baijuan patted her head and kissed her black hair with a smile. "The steamed bun is for you to fill your stomach. Dinner will only start in half an hour. When the time comes, you will sit at the same table as me. Our chief will also be there. That group of people should want to see you." Aju nodded with her eyes wide open. Then she paused and said, Little brother seems to be very popular in the army. It's good to let them know that you are mine, so that they won't always have some strange ideas. Why would there still be people who have ideas about a married man? Woolly Buddha will not forgive these people. In the future, when they die, I will not recite scriptures for them. They are too bad, too bad. Fortunately, little brother has better taste and knows that I am the best one. Yes, blow on the left side too. There's also water. Although Aju's words were a little jumpy, Baijuan still heard a lot of information from it. His gentleness had always been reserved for Aju. Naturally, he would be as ruthless as he could to others. Looking at Aju's appearance, it was obvious that she had come out of the bathtub. He was also clear about the recent situation in the army. It seemed that it was the matter of the few female soldiers who accompanied her. Baijuan's eyes narrowed bit by bit. The light in his eyes could not be said to be friendly. However, he also knew that according to Aju's personality, she would not tell him anything. Therefore, he still had to get some information from her. Are there many people in the bathroom today? I even queued for a while, and helped a sister get a bucket of water. That sister let me use her shampoo. It seems that you get along well with the female soldiers here. There were a few who didn't like them. The one with the pointy chin had a light at the corner of her eyes. She didn't look good. When Baijuan heard this, he roughly knew which group it was. He stood behind Aju and patiently helped her tidy up her waist-length black hair with a faint smile. Just as Aju was about to ask him what he was smiling about, he grabbed her waist, picked her up, and placed her on his lap. I know that my little tiger doesn't like these people. Baijuan was still tidying up her long hair. He smoothed it over and over again. His side profile was handsome, and his face was peaceful. It was as if even his fingertips were gentle. Aju denied with a small face. I'm not a little tiger. Okay, you're not. Baijuan lowered his eyes and kissed her eyelids. What else do you need to do? Do you need to put something on your hair? Then, as if she had thought of something, she suddenly stretched out her hand, and her two slender arms hooked around Baijuan's neck just like that. Chapter 1320. Baijuan did not expect his girl to make such a move at all. His back suddenly stiffened. He watched her round eyes as she lifted her body and planted a kiss on his lips. It was not like a kiss at all. However, just a gentle touch was enough to destroy all of Baijuan's willpower. Almost in the next second, he hugged the person in his arms and turned around to press her into the bed. The place where his fingers brushed past was her slender and delicate long legs. He almost could not help but reach his hand into the wide camouflage uniform. Even the kiss brought out heavy breaths. Aju, my Aju. That kind of voice and aura hit her exposed neck bit by bit, giving her a feeling of numbness all over her body. Aju's fingers trembled. She watched as her little brother bent down again and kissed her neck. That feeling was so sweet that even her blood was filled with tremors. She could not help but want more. However, at this moment, Baijuan's movements stopped abruptly. He only leaned on Aju's neck and kissed her artery. He looked very gentle. Be good. It's time to eat. Let's go eat first. After saying this, Baijuan stood up and walked out. He even closed the wooden door. Aju was stunned. Her round tiger eyes turned. Then, she jumped up from the bed and looked at herself in the mirror. According to her mother, as long as it was a man, he would not be able to resist temptation. Unless that man did not love her. After all, her father did not seem to be able to stand her mother's move. Could it be that her little brother was the kind of person who never liked to play according to common sense? Or could it be that her little brother did not see that she was pouncing on him at all? It must be that her posture just now was wrong. Otherwise, her little brother's nerves were too thick and his reaction arc was too long. Sai, little brother usually looks so smart. Why are you so slow when it comes to matters of the heart? Speaking of this, the beautiful girl Aju was a little distressed. She kept muttering to herself like a little monk for a while. Then, she stretched out her hand and held her face with a frown. Her fingers gently tapped her cheek. Woolly Buddha once said that one failure was nothing. One had to be unyielding in order to cultivate the true body of the Buddha. Tang Sanzang even went through 81 difficulties before he chose the Mahayana Buddhist Dharma. What she did this time was nothing. Moreover, she didn't have many postures back then, and she didn't use enough strength. After dinner, she would remove the gravity buckle so that she could carry her little brother to bed. That was right. It was possible to take such a step. Aju nodded heavily at herself in the mirror and was about to go out. The wooden door was opened again. Bai Juan walked in with a cold wind and casually threw a pair of military pants to Aju. Put it on. These two words were quick and carried an order that could not be resisted. Aju's entire head was covered by the military pants. She tugged hard with her fingers, but her face was still full of anger. Why was the little brother still in a bad mood? Really, I must pounce on him. With this thought in mind, Aju put on the military pants. After putting them on, she realized that the military pants were too long and too big. There was also a faint smell of mint. It should be her little brother's, but it didn't match her figure. She got a belt and was tying it with her head lowered. The door opened again. There was no need to think. It was definitely her little brother. It was indeed Bai Juan. He looked at his girl and was silent for a few seconds before he walked over. He lowered his head and helped Aju tie the belt. He looked very handsome when he didn't say a word. Aju actually wanted to turn her face to kiss him, but the timing was not right. It seemed that the meal was about to start in about 10 minutes. Well, she had to endure it first. Only when she was full would she have the strength to pounce on him. Now, Bai Juan's gaze had already softened. He picked out Aju's long black hair from the military uniform and placed it behind her. In order to make his girl look more beautiful, he tucked her hair to the side. Aju's bright eyes blinked. Then she saw her little brother squat down. He bent his knees and turned his body sideways. He helped her tidy up the overly long trousers and rolled them up 3 layers one after another. Aju was a little stunned. After all, such a scene was only often seen when she was young. At that time, when she was wearing sneakers with shoelaces in the military compound for morning exercises, and when she was catching crickets with Li Hailu and the others, her shoelaces were always untied. At that time, the little brother would always bend down to tie her shoelaces and roll up the trousers for her. When she was young, the little brother was like a noble young master. Just as they said, although the little brother played with them, his hands were never stained with dirt. He was also very stable, unlike people of their age. When the grandparents in the courtyard saw the two of them go out, they greeted her and said, "Little Aju, your brother brought you out to play again. This time, do you know how to roll up your trousers by yourself?" At that time, she didn't need to speak. The little brother would stroke her head and smile very gently. "Grandpa Li, don't always bully our Aju. She's still young, so she doesn't need to roll up her trousers by herself. I'm older than her, so of course I'll help her roll it up." It seemed that the little brother was like this, raising her bit by bit. People said that he was bloodthirsty, vicious, and unscrupulous. He was like a poisonous snake in the jungle, biting the enemy and killing them in one blow. Or he was noble and luxurious like the floating clouds in the sky. He was the youngest Special Forces soldier king, the orthodox 3rd generation of the Red Army. It was said that the little brother never lowered his head to others. A good person did not need to lower his head because his identity was there. He was destined to be a master who was praised by others. A bad person would not lower his head even more. Everyone knew that where the little brother was stationed, those outsiders would not dare to invade at all. Thinking about it this way, when the little brother lowered his head and bent his knees, it was only when he was tying her shoelaces and rolling up her trousers. She did not know why, but her heart felt warm. She was happier than eating any number of vegetarian buns. It seemed that ever since she was young, her little brother had never changed. Whether it was when he went to the army, or how many years they had been apart, he would still raise her as a child, as meticulously as he wanted. There were many things that he wished he could do for her. He never asked for help from others. Her thoughts of pouncing on him decreased a lot. She just obediently looked at the side of the little brother's face, hoping that time would stop at this moment. This way, she could look at the little brother's face for the rest of her life. The little brother was a person who was even more handsome and cute than Buddha. She had felt this way since she was young. After coming to this point, She was even more certain of her thoughts. The little brother was her lover, her family, the person who raised her, the person who could always be with her. Chapter 13:21. When Baizhuan stood up, what he saw was a Ji's pair of sparkling eyes. Then, his girl stretched out her hands and hugged his waist. Her small face rubbed against his chest. She did not look like a cat, but like a little tiger. Because cats would never rub against people like she did. That little head of hers was still in his arms, muttering something. Little brother is good at everything, but he's too slow. Woolly Buddha is going to jump when he meets such a slow person. Baizhuan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Looking at her nagging in his arms, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. He reached out and pinched her face. Why are you so clingy? Don't you want to eat big buns? I want to eat. In fact, a Jew had been hungry for a long time. From the moment she left the house until now, she had only eaten some compressed biscuits and half a can of 8 treasures porridge. The food was not enough for her to fill her stomach. Baizhuan also knew about this, so he did not waste any more time. He held a Jew's hand and brought her to the canteen. When it was time to eat in the army, the canteen would be filled with soldiers. Everyone was wearing military uniforms and moving according to orders. Under normal circumstances, the team leader would lead the team. Everyone had their own table. It was better for Baizhuan's troops. After all, they were the crown prince's troops. They were not like the other troops, where they had to sit on a small stool to eat. The 6 of them surrounded a small square table. Their table was very big, and there were also 6 people sitting on wooden chairs. That was why Baizhuan had left a seat at their table for a Jew in advance. Of course, the problem soldiers would not refuse. Whoever refused would be courting death. It was not easy for Baizhuan to sit together with his wife for a meal. If they were in the way again, Baizhuan would not say it in front of them. After that, he would definitely make them run for 3,000 yuan. Moreover, Baizhuan had brought his wife to the army. He would definitely toast everyone later. Whether it was wine or tea, they had to make the place hot no matter what. Therefore, at this time, the problem soldiers were having a good time. They lined up in small square groups and came in. There were other female soldiers in the canteen, although there were fewer female soldiers. But no matter how few there were, they could still occupy 5 tables. The whistle was loud and clear. The squadron leader gave the order. At ease, attention, sit. With a whoosh, rows of soldiers sat around the round table. His movements were neat and tidy. Before eating, they would usually sing military songs. Baizhuan held a Jew's hand. As soon as they arrived at the entrance of the cafeteria, they heard a loud and clear voice coming from inside. Unity is strength. Unity is strength. This strength is iron. This strength is steel. It is harder than iron and stronger than steel. Baizhuan did not bring a Jew in immediately. Instead, he let her listen for a while. Then he glanced at the soldiers behind him. The soldiers at the back immediately protected a Jew from behind. When a Jew saw that her little brother was about to leave, her tiger eyes were filled with doubt. Baizhuan smiled and said, I'm going to relieve myself. 3 minutes. You stay here and listen to them sing for a while. I'll come back after they finish singing. Yes. A Jew nodded heavily. She also felt that it was better for her to go in later than now. If she had to look at a lot of food and eat it, she would definitely be in a lot of pain. Baizhuan saw that she was standing there quietly and waiting. His dark and deep eyes glanced at the other soldier again. The soldier immediately brought him to a secluded spot. There were 2 female soldiers who were stopped there. They happened to have been to the public bath today. At first, they did not understand why they were stopped. When they saw Baizhuan, they immediately understood. However, they did not expect that a person like Major Bai would actually make such a big scene for his wife. Baizhuan walked over in a military uniform with a cigarette between his fingers. The coldness between his brows was so obvious that anyone could see that he was not in a good mood. But even so, the 2 female soldiers still felt surprised. After all, the Baizhuan they saw had always been emotionless, as if nothing could affect him. That kind of cold and noble made people unable to see through him. But today, even his eyes had turned cold. His eyes were like the blades of the 12th lunar month. No wonder people said that the best person not to provoke here was never that old fox, Chief Zhao. Instead, it was Major Bai, who everyone called Master Bai. He just looked at them and then suddenly smiled. That smile was not warm, instead, it carried a faint murderous aura. You should know that I am not a good-tempered person. I have asked you to come over now, because I want to know what happened in the bath today. You can choose not to tell me, but I still hope that we can have a good talk. If we can't talk, girls, don't forget that other than the major, I am also the grandson of the Bai family. The two female soldiers suddenly paused. The Bai family? Major Bai actually brought up the Bai family. Those who knew him knew very well that he never talked about his family background, especially in the army. Other than his obsession with cleanliness, the rest of the time, he mixed with the ordinary soldiers. But now, the female soldiers' faces turned pale, and they immediately said, Major Bai, this matter really has nothing to do with us. Bai Juan knew how to interrogate people, so of course, he knew when to soften his tone. Of course I know that this matter has nothing to do with you. I just want to know what happened. Don't worry, even if you say it, no one will know that it was you who said it. The female soldiers looked at each other, not only because of Bai Juan's question, but also because they also couldn't stand that matter. They took a deep breath and said everything that needed to be said. The female soldiers saw it with their own eyes. When they said, she said that even if you have a wife, you definitely don't like your wife. You have long wanted to get a divorce, but the military marriage doesn't allow you to do so, so she wants to give herself a chance. Major Bai's handsome face was so cold that he looked like a grim reaper from hell. Even after he said thank you and left, that kind of back view was even colder to the extreme. The cold aura emitted from his entire body spread to the entire backstage. The two female soldiers' hearts skipped a beat. They were glad that the person who provoked Major Bai's wife was not them, or else Major Bai's frightening gaze. They really did not know what Major Bai would do. The two female soldiers did not know that such a Bai Juan would only show it in front of them. When Bai Juan appeared in front of a Jew again, a faint smile had already appeared on his face. He was completely different from the person with the cold gaze just now. Chapter 13:22. When a Jew saw her little brother walking over, her round tiger eyes lit up, and the white cat on her head swayed its tail. Bai Juan stretched out his hand, and the white cat jumped down. A Jew smelled the fragrance of the food inside, and was already hungry. Her stomach started to growl. When Bai Juan heard the sound, he glanced at the two soldiers on his left and right. It was obvious that he had other things to do. A Jew also saw it. Little brother, aren't we going to eat? Eat. Bai Juan smiled. You just need to eat well. A Jew still felt that her little brother was hiding something from her. However, at the same time, a Jew was also very clear that sometimes, the army indeed needed a lot of secrets. Therefore, she did not ask further. She only allowed Bai Juan to hold her hand and bring her into the large canteen that could almost accommodate 1,000 people. When they walked in, every soldier who sat down turned their heads and looked in their direction. All of their jaws were about to drop in shock. Bai. Master Bai. He was actually holding a girl's hand. Master Bai actually knew how to hold a girl's hand. The Master Bai that they had always thought did not like women. It was as if the world was a fantasy. Even the squadron leader forgot to shout the next command. At this time, the one who was the most upset was none other than Captain Zhao. Originally, he was at an independent round table. Usually, he would only be accompanied by his adjutant when he ate. Usually, it could be considered a kind of enjoyment in the large canteen. But now, his eyes were densely packed with people. Because his table was relatively secluded, he could not see anything. His identity was there. And he could not be like an ordinary soldier, stretching his neck and tiptoeing to look over there. If that was the case, it would be too damaging to his image as a leader. In the eyes of these bastards, he was no longer a deterrent. If he stood up like them, it would be too embarrassing. But damn it, he really wanted to see it. Captain Zhao held the teacup that he drank from, and his grip on the handle was a little tight. What he did not expect was that today, Bai Juan, that brat, actually began to respect his teacher. Captain Zhao watched as Bai Juan held a girl's hand and walked over from the far end. Then he sat beside him. It turned out that he had already taken a seat here. Captain Zhao's eyes were a little straight. The more he looked, the more he felt that he had seen that girl before. But he could not remember where. Most importantly, Bai Juan, this rascal, actually had a family. Based on his understanding of this brat, if it wasn't for the fact that they were already in a relationship, he wouldn't have brought a girl into the cafeteria hand in hand. The 4 female soldiers at the other tables also saw this scene. One of them bit her lips so hard that the hand holding the chopsticks left marks. The other female soldiers who were sitting at the same table with that person were also unhappy. When they were in the bathroom, they felt like they had been slapped in the face. Now that Major Bai had brought her here, it proved that their relationship was not bad. Now who knew what the female soldiers would think of them? Inexplicably, they felt a little restless and wanted to leave. But the meal had just arrived, and they had to abide by the rules in the army. In order to avoid delaying everyone's meal, Leader Zhao found his position in time and coughed heavily at the adjutant beside him. The adjutant looked at the platoon leader. Only then did the platoon leader react and give the final order. Grab the chopsticks and eat. The pots and pans in the army had their own specifications. Under normal circumstances, there were several large iron buckets, and each dish was placed on the left and right sides. Under normal circumstances, there were 8 dishes on each table. The combination of meat and vegetables was particularly appropriate. The big steamed buns were covered by a white cloth, and when they were lifted, the steaming fragrance of the noodles would come out. There was also the big white rice in the wooden bucket, which looked especially fragrant. Aju's round eyes stared at the food. She also wanted to get the food, but unfortunately, she did not have a plate. However, sitting at the chief's table, she did not need to personally get the food. Moreover, the kitchen had added more food today. One by one, the steamed buns were served. When they were served, one could smell the fragrance coming out of them. When soldiers ate, logically speaking, they should pay attention to eating and sleeping. After all the dishes were served, they moved their chopsticks together. Captain Zhao watched as Bai Juan placed the vegetarian bun that he picked up with his chopsticks into the girl's bowl. He did not let her eat it immediately. Instead, he poured vinegar into it and used his chopsticks to pry open a small mouth. Then he said in a low voice, "Eat it. Take small bites. The filling of the bun that has just come out of the pot is hot." Captain Zhao listened from the side and coughed again. He thought to himself, "Kid, since you are here to respect your teacher, show some respect for your teacher. At the very least, you have to introduce her to me. Who exactly is the girl next to you?" Unexpectedly, just as everyone was extremely curious, Bai Juan stood up with one hand in his belt. He was dressed in a military uniform, but his eyes were cold to the bottom of the valley. Aju subconsciously wanted to look up at him, but Bai Juan patted her head, meaning that he wanted her to continue eating. Captain Zhao thought to himself, "Since you're already like this, the girl will definitely ask you what's wrong. If you pat her head, will she listen to you?" However, Aju obediently lowered her head to eat the bun again. She listened to Bai Juan's words and took small bites. She looked very cute. With food, her attention was distracted by more than half. Of course, when Aju was eating, she did not forget her little brother. She picked up an extra bun and picked it up to dry. When her little brother was done, he would be able to eat the ready-made bun. However, her little brother had to hurry up. Otherwise, she was afraid that if she left it to dry, the bun would enter her stomach. Seeing that she was eating happily, Bai Juan said in a faint voice, "Before we eat, I want to ask you something, Chief." Captain Zhao was still holding his chopsticks to pick up the food. He did not expect this kid to drag him out. He was clearly talking to the outside. Besides, when this kid did things, when did he ever think of asking him for instructions? However, the procedure still had to be followed. "What do you want to ask for instructions? Go ahead." Captain Zhao tried his best to make himself look very serious. He even placed his wooden chopsticks by the side. He must want this girl to stay in the army for more days. It was not impossible to make such a request, but, Before Captain Zhao could finish his thoughts, Bai Zhuan's voice sounded again. It carried an unprecedented chill, and those words seemed to be seeping out bit by bit. I want to catch a few female military doctors. Chapter 1323. Capture a few female military doctors. How could they capture female military doctors so casually? If something happened to them here, the higher-ups would find trouble with the army. President Zhao's eyes widened in an instant. He blew his beard and raised his head to look at young Master Bai, who had caused such a big trouble. Bai Zhuan's handsome face had no intention of warming up at all. If you don't say anything, it means that you agree. Agree my ass. He didn't react in time, okay. This kid. President Zhao was about to speak. Bai Zhuan raised his hand and interrupted him clearly. The row of soldiers waiting outside instantly rushed in and surrounded a female soldier's dining table. The other female military doctors also watched from the side and began to whisper to each other. The expressions of the few women who were led by Zixuan suddenly changed. Their small faces were so pale that they were somewhat unrecognizable. Looking at the soldiers who had surrounded them in the middle, even her eyes were shaking violently. Amidst the panic, there was an indescribable anger. Someone spoke. Major Bai, what do you mean by this? Even if you're a major now, you don't have the right to treat us like this, right? You're talking about rights with me? Bai Zhuan tilted his head and smiled. He stepped on a pair of military boots and walked in front of the few women. Then I'll tell you about the laws of China. Any attempt to destroy a military marriage is illegal. In my territory, you spread rumors about my relationship with my wife, slandered me in front of my wife, and even wanted to interfere in my marriage. You even said that you wanted to give yourself a chance. I want to ask you, why did you think that I would give you this chance? I've already given you a way out by not shooting you to death. But don't worry, when you get out of this army and are no longer involved in this military uniform, I will use the power of the Bai family to make you suffer a fate worse than death. Bai Zhuan said the last sentence very ruthlessly. After Zixuan heard it, her entire body trembled. She was a little speechless and looked very pitiful. I said those words because I like you. Why are you doing this to me? Like me? Just to destroy my family? Bai Zhuan's eyes became even colder. To me, your liking is not liking at all. It's the greatest evil in the world. Any person who wants to interfere with other people's thoughts, even ordinary people know how shameless it is, but you don't feel anything at all. Perhaps when the army recruits female soldiers again, they should check whether you are worthy of being a soldier or not. These words made the others stand up as well. At first, they didn't know what had happened. They even felt that Master Bai was too impulsive this time, and didn't seem like him. This time they heard it clearly. It turned out that this woman was spouting nonsense in front of their sister-in-law. She even tried to interfere? The problem court disdained these people the most. Old man was the first to walk over and smiled coldly. Why are you still crying? What's wrong with you? Damn it, if you were in my mother's army, I would ask my mother to kick you guys out. Did your parents send you to the army to steal other people's husbands? Seeing that other people's things are good, you just want to take them? You say you like her, but you're actually doing the dirtiest things. You like her like that, at best you're shameless. Chief, tell them to get lost. We don't need such military doctors here. That's right, tell them to get lost. As long as I think about how I'll finally find a girlfriend in the future, and be instigated by them like this, my heart will turn cold. Don't worry, with someone like you, they won't chase after you. I originally thought that they were quite good looking, but I didn't expect them to have such a bad attitude. Fortunately, I controlled myself at that time and didn't chase after them. All of you get lost. We don't want to be third parties. The soldiers in the army were basically all brought up by Bai Zhuan. Not only were they upright, but they were also full of passion and single-minded. After being tempered over the past few years, they were even more opinionated. So what if they were beautiful? So what if they cried? Damn it, if they destroyed other people's happiness, they should all get lost. In fact, that group of female military doctors more or less had some connections in their families. If they didn't have some power, they wouldn't have been able to become military doctors. In addition, The few of them had good temperaments, and their academic qualifications were the highest among them. No matter which army they went to, they were basically praised. This was the first time they were shouted at like this, telling them to get lost. That kind of awkwardness was really not like the small awkwardness when they found out that they had stolen their boyfriend in the past. Instead, they wished that they could find a hole to hide in. Even their faces were burning with pain. Leader Zhao originally wanted to talk about the friendship between the original army and the other army, but when he heard Bai Zhuan's words, his anger also rose. Although he was not a good person usually, he had used some methods to climb up. However, he firmly supported the point of being faithful to one another. It was just like how he could not do well on small problems, but when it came to the righteousness of the nation, he would not make mistakes. He did not expect that some female soldiers would actually start to be like this now. Of course, he knew that there were many female soldiers in the army who had been recruited. Those who had no connections would indeed find someone to rely on. But that was all in the local area. Where was this place? This was the border of China. In terms of style, they would not be corrupted. Chief. His secretary looked at his expression from the side. Leader Zhao waved his hand. Take them all away. Wait a minute. Bai Zhuan's voice was very indifferent. After taking them away, informed their original army, and asked their chief to come and pick them up personally. I'll have to trouble Secretary Li to tell their chief that I will personally write a crusade letter and hand it over to the higher-ups. If their army can't give me an explanation for destroying my family, then I can only stand in court with the other party and sue them along with their chief. It is also considered a dereliction of duty to not teach my subordinates well. Go to court? When the female soldiers heard this, they almost shouted out loud. For such a matter, they were sued in court. Not to mention the few of them, even their entire families would lose face with them. Major Bai's move was too ruthless, too ruthless. Secretary Li also felt that Master Bai's move was indeed ruthless. This way, even if they suppressed these few female military doctors, the other party would be too embarrassed to report it. They would probably want to come over and apologize, so that this matter would quickly calm down. They wanted to be a mistress, but in the end, they were sued in court. They would probably lose all face. A Jew held a vegetarian bun in her mouth and watched this scene with her round eyes. She thought to herself, so this was what her little brother had done behind her back just now. Yes, it was indeed time to teach the other party a lesson. However, compared to these things, she still felt that pouncing on her little brother was more important. After eating, she would continue to work hard. Chapter 1324. After Bai Zhuan finished dealing with those women, he turned around and saw his girl looking at him with a vegetable bun in her mouth. He did not know what she was thinking, but her beautiful little face was like a tiger, and her round eyes rolled twice. Bai Zhuan raised his eyebrows and patted her head in amusement. Are you full? Not yet. A Jew did not forget what Buddha Wuli said. Only when one was full would one have the strength to pounce on others. She had just eaten 2 vegetable buns, so she had to eat a few more. You eat first. After that, I'll bring you to meet my soldiers. Bai Zhuan reached out his hand, crushed the corner of her mouth, and twisted the skin off her face. A Jew nodded. Then, she raised her eyes and looked at Chief Zhao, who was sitting opposite her. Her pair of tiger eyes were very bright. Even Chief Zhao felt a little uncomfortable under her gaze. He was about to cough twice. Then he heard the girl say in a soft and silly tone, Little brother, who is this? I just heard you call him chief. If he is your chief, should I toast this chief with a cup of tea? When Chief Zhao heard Aju's words, he was very happy. Look at how sensible this girl was. She even knew how to toast him. She was not like that group of bastards who only knew how to cause trouble for him. No need. Ahem. Why did you call Bai Zhuan little brother? Girl, aren't you Bai Zhuan's wife in his hometown? I see that you are still young. Why did you marry Bai Zhuan? Chief Zhao was full of curiosity, so he finally asked. It was the last question that made Bai Zhuan look in his direction coldly. Now that Chief Zhao did not care, he could only wonder about the answer. A Jew slowly swallowed the bun in her mouth and said, I was raised by little brother. I am the adopted daughter of the Bai family. Now I am little brother's wife. Thank you for taking care of little brother during this period of time. He usually likes to be clean, but he is too gentle. He must be very good to you, Chief. Let me toast you with tea and wine. She finally used the wife line that she had learned for a long time. Aju expressed that she was very happy. Chief Zhao did not know how to drink this cup of tea. That kid Bai Juan was indeed very clean. But when did he treat her well? How could that kid be gentle? That brat was simply the reincarnation of a demon. However, the little girl's eyes were sparkling, but they were very clear. Leader Zhao couldn't bring himself to say those words. He could only raise his head and drink all the tea. Seeing this, the corners of Bai Juan's mouth curled up. No matter how one looked at it, the arc of his thin lips looked sinister. Leader Zhao was really convinced. Where did this kid find such a girl? He really didn't understand Bai Juan at all. In fact, Leader Zhao didn't know. Bai Juan was indeed very gentle. He was so gentle that when he saw a person fall asleep when he was young, he could not bear to wake the child up. So he allowed her to hug his arm and stay for the entire night. He was so gentle that when that person was still unable to walk steadily, he followed behind her, afraid that she would trip if she moved around. He was so gentle that even when he kissed her, he would first test her gently before slowly deepening his kiss. Only a Jew could see these things. When a Jew was full, Bai Juan really stood up. He held a cup in his hand and gave it to her. Then, he held her hand and walked towards the lively place. First, it was the people from the problem core. One by one, they made a ruckus and asked Lord Bai to treat them to a smoke. Smoking and playing poker were probably the only hobbies in the army. Bai Juan did not show his black-bellied personality at this time. He gave each of them a zhonghua. The soldiers below were all noisy. Sister-in-law, you have to keep a close eye on Master Bai in the future. He's too popular like this. It's a good thing to be popular. Aju smiled. Little brother has been very popular since he was young. Even I like little brother. The other girls will definitely like him when they see him. Don't worry. If they come over, I will beat them up. When the soldiers heard this, they were stunned for a moment. In the end, they all laughed. After all, the girl in front of them really didn't look like she could beat anyone. Sister-in-law, you girls are weak. Leave this kind of beating up to Master Bai. When a Jew heard others say that she was weak, she thought for a moment, and felt that she still had to prove her strength. She raised her hand, and lifted that person up. Then she shook him back and forth and threw him back on the wooden chair. Everyone was speechless. What the fuck? What exactly happened just now? The soldier was even more confused. It was as if his stomach was churning for a while, before he regained his composure. He had just been lifted up by someone. All the soldiers looked at a Jew, and widened their eyes in disbelief. It was one thing for Master Bai to be extraordinary, but the wife he found was also so extraordinary. How was this in line with the setting of a girl with little strength? She was simply a Hercules. Li Hailu and the others had long known about Aju's strength, so they were not surprised at all. This feeling of being the only one in a daze was not bad. Someone could not help but ask, Master Bai, why is sister-in-law so strong? Bai Juan replied, she eats a lot. He did not mention anything about Aju's Buddhist fate and her extraordinary background. When the soldiers heard this, they tacitly did not mention the difference in this mission. After all, sister-in-law had said that the demon-suppressing treasure was her father's ring. She also said that her father's demonic aura was soaring into the sky. Such a thing. After forming a country, demons were not allowed. So they had to pretend that nothing had happened. However, they could think this way. In fact, this was not the case. After a Jew was introduced. In fact, what you brought back this time was a treasure map deep in the mountains. This treasure map depicted an ancient tomb. As long as you find this ancient tomb, you will be able to find a large number of cultural relics. Originally, this matter had ended here, but the higher-ups received news that there had been something strange recently. There were also a few well-known archaeology professors who had sent out distress signals in that generation. They must have gone there to investigate. Ordinary soldiers could not carry out this mission, so the higher-ups decided to let you carry it out. If you don't know that this is an infringement, then I will tell you now. If it happens, legal procedures will be taken. Chapter 1325. There's no problem with carrying out the mission, but... Bai Zhuan paused and raised his eyes. His voice was indifferent. I need to know what kind of ancient tomb this is, and why strange things happened. This time we encountered many things that we can't explain when we went out. Is it the same for this ancient tomb? Leader Zhao walked a few steps around the military academy before finally letting out a long sigh. I'll give you all the information in a moment. Logically speaking, no one should be allowed to approach this ancient tomb, but someone has to do this. The Tang sect said that they've already sent someone to follow you. I've been waiting for the past 2 days. Once the Tang sect's people arrive, things will be a lot easier to handle. If you are waiting for the people from the Tang sect, then I can tell you. Bai Zhuan tilted his head, lit a cigarette, and held it in his mouth. When the wind blew over, it only made him look more manly. She has already arrived. Captain Zhao was shocked and subconsciously looked at the entrance of the army. She has already arrived? Why didn't I see her? Did she just enter? That's not right. I didn't hear the alarm. A Jew is the person sent by the Tang sect. Bai Zhuan still did not change. At this moment, his deep eyes seemed to have a faint light. Captain Zhao's face was filled with disbelief. That little wife of yours? She is from the Tang sect. How is this possible? If she hadn't arrived in time for this mission, I might have lost many comrades. When Bai Zhuan mentioned a Jew, his eyes were always gentle. She is more capable than before. Her strength is indeed not small. Captain Zhao recalled what had happened in the canteen just now and muttered, that strength is not a problem for her to knock you down. How did this girl grow up? Bai Zhuan once again thought of his father-in-law, the man who had been very mysterious until now and never showed his face easily. The strength in Aju's body was innate. In other words, the Bailey family was very likely not ordinary humans. Bai Zhuan did not say this matter. He only glanced at Captain Zhao. This mission is too special. The safety factor is different from the past. I have no problem. As for the others, they can choose voluntarily. Especially the old one. He is the only son in the Feng family. I'll think about it. Leader Zhao also let out a long sigh. Get ready. This time, the higher-ups are very kind and gave you a day to consider. The people from the Tang sect are dealing with other things abroad, so it's most convenient to enter the tomb from here. Also, the Tang sect said that they have sent the best person in the world. You brat, you're marrying a wife that's so shocking. Who is she? Chief Zhao should have heard of her mother. Bai Zhuan smiled. The Queen of Munitions, Hellion Vivian. Leader Zhao's expression suddenly changed. It's her. Yes. Bai Zhuan flicked the cigarette butt. Leader Zhao rubbed his chin. If it's her daughter, then I can rest assured. Otherwise, when you take your little wife on a mission, my heart will also ache. I thought you would refuse. As long as I wear these clothes, I will do my best to do what I have to do. The corners of Bai Zhuan's mouth curled up slightly. Moreover, a Jew doesn't want her little brother to be a deserter. Since she has also entered the Tang sect, her awareness must be the same as mine. We are all like this, because we have people we want to protect. Actually, it's not a big deal. At most, when there's danger, I'll block it for her. It's better than letting her carry out a mission in a place where I don't know. When Leader Zhao heard this, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at the person who had been a soldier under him for nearly 4 years. He still remembered the first time he saw him. He was still a cold and aloof youth who couldn't even be bothered to talk to others. He looked at everyone as if he was high and mighty. It was obvious that he hadn't experienced any setbacks. Although they were all in the Crown Prince's army, Bai Zhuan was undoubtedly the most noble among them, whether it was his background or his appearance. Among the group of soldiers, he was the youngest, but he was a sharpshooter. It was as if he was born to be a soldier. That cold and righteous aura that he carried made all the people who were eyeing Wuxia at the border tremble in fear. They did not dare to act rashly. Now, he had grown into a man of indomitable spirit. Everything he did, he would think through it carefully before doing it. But when facing that girl, there was only love left. The kind of love that was used to raise a child. Leader Zhao smiled and shook his head. To be able to have such a disciple in name was simply the proudest thing in his military career. In the future, when he handed this place over to him, he could let go with peace of mind. After all, some of the Crown Prince's soldiers were not as good as people thought. It was just that everyone had their own temper. For example, right now there was a group of people gathered under a big tree, placing bets head to head. I bet that sister-in-law will bet on Master Bai. You guys saw how strong sister-in-law was just now. She lifted me up like a plastic bag. This strength is simply heaven-defying. Wouldn't it be very easy to push Master Bai? You can't say that. Everyone knows how shameless Master Bai is usually. If Master Bai uses other methods, sister-in-law's strength will be useless. Why are you guys talking so much? Whoever thinks it is, bet on it. When the time comes, we'll see the results. With the problem core leading the way, they push things forward in a lively manner. I bet 3 boxes of cigarettes on sister-in-law. I bet 5 boxes on Master Bai. I. The last person did not say I, because just as he was about to throw the cigarette in, he turned his head and saw a very beautiful girl squatting beside him. They all knew this beautiful girl. She had a cat's tail wagging on her head. She was holding her small face and looking at them with her round tiger eyes. The old man choked and coughed. Sister-in-law, why are you here? I was bored. I saw that your side was lively, so I came over. As Aju spoke, her fingers were still trying to understand the notes. I've been here for a few minutes, but you guys were too enthusiastic to notice me. The old man opened his mouth and was about to explain. However, Aju's hand patted his shoulder. You really have good taste. The old man was speechless. Why did sister-in-law praise him for no reason? He himself was dumbfounded, okay? Could it be that sister-in-law had also learned to be sarcastic like Master Bai? Then sister-in-law, this bet. Aju stood up with a pair of bright eyes. Don't worry, I won't let you down. I'll let you win. The old man was speechless. Wait a minute, his trust meant that he bet that sister-in-law would use brute force to suppress Master Bai. Chapter 1326. Wait a minute, no way. Was sister-in-law really planning to suppress Master Bai? The old man looked at the beautiful girl, who was leaving with the white cat, and was stunned. Then he turned his head and said to Li Hailu, Young Master Li, quick, call Master Bai and tell him that sister-in-law is preparing to ambush him. Li Hailu thought to himself that it was not a big deal. From the moment he entered the army, he knew what little Aju was planning. Bai Zhuan has already run ahead of us in many things. For example, the matter of having a wife. The few of us are still single. We don't even have a girl by our side, right? In the future, what can we point at to mock that guy? It must be that our strength is not as good as his wife's. So we can't let him know about little Aju's plan. When the old man heard this, his eyes lit up and he gave a thumbs up. Brilliant. This move is really brilliant. Let's wait and see the results tomorrow. Li Hailu smiled with a mischievous look. In fact, he was doing this for his brother's good. Bai Zhuan had liked little Aju for many years. According to Shaolin, Bai Zhuan had been extremely possessive since he was young. He was creating an opportunity for his brother. Anyway, little Aju could be considered an official family member. Of course, the most important thing was to be able to seize the opportunity to mock him tomorrow. Just as Li Hailu was thinking this, the others also planned to hide it from Bai Zhuan. They did not expect that when they spoke of the devil would appear. They had not received the note yet. That familiar and different voice came from behind. What are you betting on again? It was Master Bai. There was no need to look back. Just by hearing the voice one could tell. The soldiers' backs stiffened, and they even stuttered. Of course, we're betting on who can find a girlfriend first, right? Master Bai really came and went like a ghost. He scared them so much that their foreheads were covered in sweat. Bai Zhuan's deep gaze swept across the faces of the soldiers in front of him. His eyes narrowed. Are you really betting on this? Of course, the soldiers usually gambled like this, so they spoke with confidence. Otherwise, what else can we bet on? Bai Zhuan walked towards the youngest old man. He tugged at his finger and lowered his voice. Old man, you should know that I don't like to be fooled by others. We are really betting on who can find a girlfriend first. Sob, sob, sob. Being interrogated by Master Bai at such a close distance was really stressful. Bai Juan looked at them again. Then, he moved his fingers and let go of the collar in his hand. His expression also became indifferent. If you are betting on this, I advise you not to waste your energy. Why? Old man raised his eyebrows. Bai Juan glanced at the group of people. Because none of you look like people who can find a girlfriend. The problem legions. Critical hit. This was definitely a critical hit of a critical hit. Bullying them for not having a girlfriend. Who could they blame for not having a girlfriend until now? It was all because Master Bai was too handsome. Every time he went out, those girls would always take a fancy to him. Which one of them wasn't a handsome and cool tycoon? In the past, they also dominated every city, and were chased after by beautiful women, okay? Old man turned his head, and glanced at the equally indignantly Hailu. It was as if he was saying that it was right not to tell Master Bai that his sister-in-law had the idea of suppressing him. Such a sharp-tongued Master Bai deserved to be bullied. Bai Juan, on the other hand, had a faint smile on his face. He stretched out his slender fingers. The army is not allowed to have such unhealthy entertainment, so I won't punish you. I will help you put away these cigarettes. This time, not only the problem legions, but even the other soldiers could not help but sigh in their hearts. Master Bai's shamelessness was really getting more and more powerful day by day. Bai Juan raised his eyebrows and smiled faintly. Why? Are you not convinced? Then why don't you bring these cigarettes and run 2 laps around the mountain? Master Bai, this is the mountain, not your back garden. Don't make it sound so easy. If you have the ability, don't sit in the off-road vehicle and slowly drink mineral water when you punish us. You look like a military young master. It's obvious that you want us to watch anxiously. Sinister, too sinister. The cigarettes are for you. We won't accept the punishment. Old man said in a listless voice. Master Bai, can we not be so shameless in the future? Bai Juan's noble and handsome face was still cold. The premise is that you don't play tricks in front of me and tell me the truth. All right, I'll take these cigarettes as your filial piety to me. Old Zhao still has something to do, so he will call you over to talk tonight. Be mentally prepared. The problem legions had followed Bai Juan for a long time. When they heard him say this, they knew that it was probably related to the mission. Everyone subconsciously straightened their backs and took this matter seriously. Bai Juan did not really want their cigarettes. He only picked one and placed it between his thin lips. The rest were casually thrown to them. With that smoking side profile, coupled with a straight military uniform and slender black military boots, Bai Juan looked like a warlord young master from the Republic of China when he was not on a mission, just like what the soldiers had said. When he walked into the small house, the smell of smoke had almost dissipated. The strange thing was that a Jew had not returned yet. Bai Juan paused for a moment and planned to go out to look for her. Coincidentally, as soon as he opened the door, a Jew walked over from the other side with the little white cat in her arms. When she saw him, her round tiger eyes lit up. Bai Juan leaned against the door frame and waited for his girl to approach him. His handsome face with a faint smile was filled with endless gentleness. However, what Bai Juan did not expect was that as soon as he entered the door, his girl pressed him down on the wooden bed with force. That beautiful little face was very close to him. Just like that, she lay on his body. Every part of her body was soft. Her soft long hair emitted a faint body fragrance. Strands of it hung on his arm, tickling his heart. Bai Juan subconsciously wanted to push her away, but the person on top of him refused to listen. She stubbornly pressed down on his wrist and even muttered cutely, I can't find handcuffs in the army. Otherwise, I would be able to handcuff you. When Bai Juan heard the words handcuff you, he raised his eyebrows and was about to get up. However, a Jew moved her left hand and imitated what he did before. She slid her hand into his shirt. Her beautiful tiger eyes were bright. Bai Juan's skin did feel different from hers. Bai Juan paused. His eyes looked at her movements and his deep eyes darkened. A Jew directly bent down and peeled off his military uniform. The man's honey-colored chest was displayed in front of a Jew. Every inch of his body was extremely sexy. Chapter 1327. Aju only felt that her palm was a little too hot. She wanted to move uneasily, but he hugged her waist and kept rubbing it. That unfamiliar feeling made her involuntarily grab the little brother's back tightly. The panting sound beside her ear seemed to be even deeper. It was getting lower and lower, and it was incomparably hot beside her ear. Bai Juan was leaning sideways. That handsome face was so sexy that it was just inches away. His pair of peach blossom eyes were so deep that they could not see the end. It was as if he only had eyes for her. Aju had never thought that the little brother had such a side to him. He was so handsome and wild that her entire body was a little hot. The numbness at her tailbone did not fade away. Instead, it became more and more intense. After an unknown amount of time, he pressed her hand and moved it again and again. It was not until a warm current flowed into her palm that Aju came back to her senses. She was hugged and kissed by him on the lips. That kind of kiss, with an indescribable lingering feeling, was too hot. It was so hot that she wanted to escape. However, he pressed down on her hand. His deep tone carried a hint of coaxing. "Didn't you say that you would help me? Don't be afraid of me." Aju's entire body trembled. Her round tiger eyes were moist. How could it be that in such a short time, little brother had? Be good one more time. One last time. The night flowed, and the moonlight shone on the two figures that were covered together. Their breaths reverberated in the room. It was so small and thin, heavy and soft and sweet. When Aju woke up the next day, the person beside her was already gone. She could only hear slogans and running sounds coming from not far away. 12121. That was a sound that would only sound when one lived in the army. Aju sat on the bed in a daze for a while. Her round eyes floated to her hand, and her small face immediately turned red. Last night, she was hugged by the little brother like that. She helped him do it countless times, and every time, he said that it was the last time. In the end, her fingers were sore. Only then did he hug her from behind. He held her ears again and again, rubbing her entire body until it was numb. Only then was he willing to let her close her eyes. As long as she thought of the taste of last night, her legs would feel a little weak. However, she was also very clear that the little brother did not really want her. But last night was already too much for her to handle. Aju paused for a moment and lifted the quilt. She buried her entire head there like a shy little tiger. When Aju was shy, she was different from other girls. She began to mutter Buddhist scriptures. Her little bow was arching, and her hands were holding her face. Her long hair was scattered to the side, and her face was red. When Bai Juan came in and saw this scene, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. His girl must be shy. Although she didn't forget to destroy his single bed after being shy, he could see that she was moving her head around, trying to express something. Bai Juan was also holding a lunchbox in his hand. The lunchbox was filled with the porridge and steamed buns that he had just gotten from the canteen. There were also some northern specialty pickles and 2 eggs. He knew that these things were not enough for his girl, but it was enough to fill her stomach. After Bai Juan placed the breakfast on the table, he reached out and carried Aju, who was on the bed, up horizontally. He placed her properly on his lap, and the smile on the corner of his mouth did not fade in the slightest. On the other hand, the dignified Aju was only focused on chanting the Buddhist scriptures. After being hugged by him, she did not even have time to react before her mouth was stuffed with a big bowl. It was a little like when he fed her when she was young. Aju took a bite, and all her shyness disappeared. She held it with both hands and took another bite. As if she had thought of something, she said, "I haven't brushed my teeth yet. Eat first. You can go after eating." Bai Juan wiped the corner of her mouth with a tissue. "I've already squeezed the toothpaste for you." Aju nodded and sat there obediently. However, as soon as she moved, she felt the scalding heat. Her face instantly turned red, and she carefully moved away. Bai Juan looked at her and sighed deeply. He buried his head in her long black hair. "Aju, if you keep moving around like this, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to help me again. Be good and don't move." Those words were a little hoarse when he said them. This reminded Aju of the scene from last night, and her ears became burning again. With a steamed bun in her mouth, she did not dare to move. It was not until the heat under her long legs subsided that Bai Juan raised his eyes. Looking at her expression, his eyes darkened. Are you afraid of me like this? Since when did he become most afraid of showing even the slightest expression of rejection on her face? That was why he chose to stay away at that time. It was to hide this kind of self even more deeply. Only in front of her did he want to be a docile dog. But in the depths of his heart, he had always wanted to clamor and hug her fiercely. He even hoped to see helpless tears in her eyes, just like last night. As long as he thought of this, his pulse would boil. But his heart was indeed nervous. He did not want to hear a denial. That was why he coaxed her like that, and let her think about other things. Bai Juan knew that he was a little despicable. He thought that even if she liked his hands and his skills, as long as he could make her happy and forget how ruthless he was at that time, he was willing to do anything. Aju raised her eyes and looked at Bai Juan. As long as it's you, I'm not afraid of anything. Bai Juan was stunned for a moment before he smiled. His thin lips kissed her ear. Then after dinner, can you help me again? Aju's entire body trembled. Her thick eyelashes were like fragile wings. It was clearly unfamiliar, but because the other party was Bai Juan, she was completely filled with tiger aura. Okay. Bai Juan looked at the person sitting in his arms and thought of the little monk when he first met her. She had big eyes and carried a big bag. No matter how he looked at her, she was very likable. Perhaps at that time, he would have been consigned to eternal damnation. He remembered that a long time ago, he had read a book. It was written in the book that when you love someone very much, your first reaction when you see her is not to want her, but to stretch out your arms so that she can safely stay in your arms. You will treat her like a treasure, so that she won't be bumped around and stray from place to place. He treated Aju the same way. From the beginning to the end, it had been like this. Aju was not only a treasure to him, but also a ray of sunshine that would exist no matter what in this life. Chapter 1328. The breakfast was finally finished. If it wasn't for someone knocking on the door outside, Aju would probably be held by Bai Juan's hand and help him again. Aju finally saw the other side of her little brother. How should she put it? He was very good at coaxing people, but his tone was ruthless when he spoke. That kind of ruthlessness could make her lose all strength. If she had not studied biology, Aju would have thought that she was sick. Since last night, her heartbeat had not been normal. The places that were touched by her little brother would be hot. She knew that it was because she liked him. She liked her little brother, and he liked her too. There was nothing in this world that was more joyous than two people loving each other. Therefore, Woolly Buddha, you must let me and my little brother be together for a long time. Aju chanted Umitba in a dignified manner. After Bai Juan opened the door, he saw the few people outside. Although the corners of his mouth were smiling, there was no trace of warmth in his eyes. An experienced driver like Li Hailu could tell with a glance that they must have interrupted Master Bai's good deed. He coughed heavily and said, "We are here to call you and Aju to eat." Aju. Bai Juan raised his good-looking eyebrows. Li Hailu instantly changed his words. Sister-in-law. Only then was Bai Juan satisfied. However, he did not let these people in. His tall black military boots blocked the way, and his voice was very indifferent. I am also a person with a family. Is the room of a person with a family for you bachelors to casually enter? Go outside and wait. The problem soldiers were speechless. Master Bai, if you don't want us to enter the room, just say so. Why did you emphasize the word bachelor? Do you guys feel that Master Bai is getting more and more like that recently? Like what? Showing off. This wife-showing maniac. Li Hailu pursed his lips. He is not just a wife-showing maniac. Now, even his possessiveness is terrifying. Isn't it just calling her a Jew? That's the name I've been calling since I was young. Now he insists that I call her sister-in-law. Don't you think he's shameless? Master Bai has always been so shameless. We have to get used to it. But Captain, I don't have a target. The youngest was only 19 years old, and his face was still youthful. Just you wait, this time when I go home, I must find someone to marry. Li Hailu put his arm on him and said, Child, your mother won't agree. Do you see me? He had been betrothed since he was a child. Initially he thought that this was a good thing, right? He had a wife since he was young. How proud. In the end, it turned out to be a man. A man. Listen to me. Your mother likes Master Bai so much. She might find a man for you. Don't get into the fire pit. Old man. Just like that, they laughed heartily. What the youngest man didn't know was that other than him, everyone else had received a mission to travel. However, they didn't tell him, because they wanted him to go home happily. After the old man took off his military uniform, he was a living example of a rich playboy. The car that came to pick him up was extremely luxurious. When it was time to go home, he really couldn't bear to part with this group of brothers. He hugged them one by one. When he reached Jeju, he actually didn't even dare to hold her hand. Seeing Master Bai's handsome face, he didn't seem too scary, so he quietly hugged Jeju for a while. Sister-in-law, I'll bring you instant noodles when I come back. Jeju nodded her head for their deep friendship. The youngest man still wanted to say something, but he saw Baijuan looking at him with a cold gaze. Shouldn't you leave? The car at home has been parked here for so long. Don't you want it anymore? The youngest man suddenly remembered the time when Alaska peed on the tires of the car. Without saying anything, he directly sat in the passenger seat. The car window was rolled down, and he acted like a young master. Master Bai, Brother Li Dachui, Liangzi Little Ka, I'll wait for you in the imperial capital. Everyone put their arms around each other's shoulders and smiled faintly as they watched the youngest person leave. Only then did their expressions change. Captain, we're ready. We can set off at any time. Baijuan said okay, then he raised his wrist. Let's check the time first. In 3 minutes, we'll gather beside the plane. This time, we'll directly dispatch a small plane. Little Ka, you'll be in charge of the drone control. Liangzi, you'll be in charge of the explosives. Dachui, you'll be in charge of the preparation to rescue the hostages at any time. Hailu, you'll be in charge of the plane, and keep the communication of all the members smooth. This mission is different from the ones we've seen in the past. The place is an ancient tomb. Among the people trapped are university students and the best archaeologists in our country. There are even foreign criminals. The worst thing is that these criminals are holding them hostage. Due to the complicated terrain of the mission, the number of people we can sneak in is limited. The mission this time was indeed different from the past. Before he left, he still instructed Baijuan. I will send 20 small planes to patrol the sky above you at all times. As long as you control these extremely vicious criminals, someone will immediately support you. Of course, I have also said that this place is very strange. Those small planes will disappear every time we go there. Therefore, Aju's ability is the key. We can only rely on her to solve feng shui. Aju did not hear Captain Zhao's words. She had already jumped into the cabin in a capable military uniform. This time, she did not carry anything on her back because she had to parachute to reach her destination. Her cat was still on top of her head. Perhaps it was a little strange to carry a white cat on a mission, but Li Hailu thought about it carefully. This white cat seemed to have been there the moment Aju appeared. It had never left Aju's side. The green cat eyes and snow white fur all over its body were like Aju's protector. Baijuan was the most commanding captain of the battle. He was the last one to board the plane. The cabin door was pulled closed with a whoosh. Everyone was dressed in combat clothes. This time, it was a domestic rescue, so they finally had the 5 stars that symbolized the national emblem on their clothes. Baijuan's deep gaze swept across everyone's face. With that kind of perseverance, he said, "You've all seen the video. This time, the criminals are very arrogant. They even call us Chinese dogs and think that we can't do anything to them. Although this place is located at the junction of the 3 countries, it's in our country. Even if it's not in our country, we still have to save the kidnapped citizens." As he said this, Baijuan raised his fist again. His voice was very indifferent. All Chinese. The army made a move and a low roar shook the sky. Even if they are far away, they will be killed. Chapter 1329. This was the first time Aju had seen Baijuan's appearance before he went on a mission. Sure enough, the last time on the school field, the little brother had received a mission order. which was why he had left without saying a word. The people of the Tang sect were not like this. Therefore, Aju turned her face to the side. Such a little brother was something she had never imagined. He was very responsible, and it was even enough to make people's blood boil. Perhaps this was the meaning of wearing this military uniform. That military green seemed to be telling the whole world that as long as they were here, China would be here. As long as they were here, they would not let them come and go as they pleased. As long as they were here, they would not allow them to hurt the people of China in the slightest. Listening to such an oath, Aju felt countless times that this was the little brother she liked. It was enough to make people feel proud of him. As soon as Bai Juan finished speaking, Li Hailu came to add on to the mission. From now on, everyone will look at the information in their hands. This is the place where we are about to carry out the mission. This place is very strange, other than its special terrain. The planes that flew here often disappeared for no reason. This time, the archaeologists came to this place to study this ancient tomb that had no written records. According to the relevant records, someone had once seen an animal that was as huge as a mountain here. It was very big, especially its mouth. Some people used a bloody mouth to describe it, saying that it seemed to be very good at eating. When it opened its mouth, there would be fog on the mountain, so until now, no one had really seen its true appearance. Of course, this was just the words of the nearby villagers. At the junction of the three countries, other than the wandering criminals, there were not many real villagers. In addition, there would be drug lords on both sides of the river from time to time. This news might not be true. It was also possible that someone's eyes had seen wrongly, or that they had made up a story in order to get a better deal. After all, these adjectives did not sound like an animal that could be seen usually. How could there be an animal that was as tall as a mountain? However, no one noticed that after Li Hailu finished speaking, the eyes of the white cat lying beside Aju flashed with a green light. So let's put this matter aside for now. What we need to do is to avoid this problem and land in advance. Of course, there's still something strange about this place. Without a professional archaeologist, it's very difficult to go deep into that place. According to the information, the archaeologists even brought a group of archaeologists this time to find this place. Don't let your guard down and follow the plan. No problem. The legions responded loudly. Just when everyone was not taking the villagers' words seriously, a voice rang out. However, Aju's brows furrowed. With a small face, she brushed her fingers across the back of the white cat. Why did she feel that the description of the animal was so familiar? However, she couldn't remember where she had seen it before. That's Tao Tai. Suddenly, Bai Juan opened his mouth. His voice was still indifferent. The problem legions were in a state of confusion. Master Bai once again activated his top student mode. From Hela's description, it should be Tao Tai, a divine beast from ancient times that can swallow everything. The ancients also called it the heaven-swallowing beast. Chapter 1330. Sky-swallowing beast. The soldiers still did not quite understand what it was. Bai Juan's voice was still very calm. You should read more books. There are very clear records in the classic of mountains and seas. It is rumored that this kind of divine beast can swallow the sun and the moon when it opens its mouth. It has the ability to turn the world upside down. It is very good at eating and dares to eat anything. It even dares to eat mountains, rivers, and the heavens. That is why it is called the sky-swallowing beast. Li Hailu touched the bridge of his nose. Even if we read books, we wouldn't read such an uncommon book like the classic of mountains and seas, right? That was clearly something that the old men liked to read. They really did not understand what kind of taste Master Bai had. The soldiers also felt the same way about this. Master Bai knew too much. People who read books, since they were young, were so abnormal. They had no choice but to admit defeat. Then, according to Master Bai's words, it is something that exists in myths. Then it is impossible for it to exist. These words were said casually. However, Aju spoke from the side. It exists. Li Hailu turned around and raised his eyebrows. Bai Juan did not ask Aju to say more. He glanced over and said with a faint smile, the classic of mountains and seas is not a myth. Even if you haven't read books, You should know some common sense. The divine beasts in it might exist. The soldiers were speechless. These words were obviously an attack on their IQ. But if there really is such a divine beast, how should we deal with it? As the villagers described, it is as tall as a mountain. Li Hailu expressed everyone's common worry. It was obvious that if the sky-swallowing beast really existed, it would always affect their rescue of the hostages. Even if they were special forces soldiers, it was very likely that they would fall under its sharp claws. According to what Master Bai said, they even suspected that those missing planes were directly swallowed by this thing. There is a way. Aju raised her head. The white cat's tail on top of her head swayed back and forth. Her round tiger eyes were very clear, making people like her. In fact, the sky-swallowing beast is very cute. It's a standard foodie, and it doesn't have much hostility. As long as we give it enough food, it won't come out and make trouble. Aju raised her head. When the soldiers heard this, they paused for a second before asking, how much food is enough? According to their analysis, the size of the heaven-devouring beast should be quite large. Aju tilted her head and thought for a moment. She counted with her fingers. For the time being, we can get 2 trucks of bread or something like that. But it should be different from me. I like to eat vegetarian food, and it likes to eat meat. The problem legions. Sister-in-law, do you think we're enough to fill its stomach? When Aju heard this, she paused for a moment and then shook her head. It probably won't even look at us. Why? Aju was also a little melancholy. It's not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Just like how I only ate a small bite of the steamed bun. That's a good analogy. The people on the plane started to look at each other. The white cat shook its tail again, and its eyes were a deep blue. For some reason, it suddenly noticed that Bai Juan was looking at it. His body swayed a few times before he went back into hiding. Bai Juan looked at the time on his watch. There might not be a heaven-swallowing beast. I'm just telling everyone that even if there is, we have to think of a way to get through this hurdle. Everyone be mentally prepared. Now the countdown begins. Prepare to jump. Chapter 1331. As soon as Bai Juan gave the order, everyone put away their playful tone. One by one, they began to check their guns, ammunition, and parachute equipment in order. They would take whatever they were responsible for. Among them, Aju was the most relaxed. Other than the white cat and the compass, she did not seem to need to take anything else. In fact, the soldiers still did not quite believe that a divine beast like the sky-devouring beast would appear. When they jumped off the plane, they opened the parachute bag behind them. These people were all professionals, including Aju. Whether it was in the plane or in the air, everyone knew very well where they should be. Then they quickly gathered together. The plane rose as well, deviating from the vast fog in this area. No one knew that at this moment, on the other side of the verdant mountain peak, a huge creature was dragging its tail and slapping the water surface one after another. The huge creature was surrounded by thick fog. No one could see its exact appearance clearly. They only knew that its figure was swaying as it walked. Wherever it was, it seemed that all the other small animals did not dare to approach. The forest was also very quiet. No one dared to forget to lean on it. This included some ferocious beasts that were about to transcend the tribulation and become demons. Wherever it was, they would hide far away. They were not afraid that it would go berserk. They were afraid that when it did not go berserk, its mouth would be lonely and eat them all with one mouth. However, that huge creature looked like it was playing, and it also looked like it was taking a bath. However, the rhythm of its slapping on the water surface was uniform. If one looked carefully, one could see that it was not slapping on the water, but the fish inside. With a slap of its thick claws, the fish would jump to the shore one after another. With a sweep of the tip of the huge creature's tongue, it swept all of them into its stomach. Its thoughts were very simple. If the fish here were gone, it would go over there to get more. Anyway, this river was so long and so big, so there was no need to worry about not having enough food. The fog became thicker, churning out countless moist clouds. As soon as Aju landed, she knew that the fog here was different from the fog she had seen in the forest before. That time, the fog contained a huge amount of hatred, and was formed by the entanglement of resentment. And this time, the fog was because this place belonged to the intersection of the three realms. In other words, in the lower three realms, the human realm, the underworld, and the demon world all existed together. If someone with a strong demonic nature came here, they might be able to enter the demon world. Of course, such places were also the places with the most ghosts and demons. It was precisely because there were too many of them that they wouldn't lack any resentment. No one would dare to mess around in a place where the Grim Reaper was floating around. What's more, there was still the demon world. The only ones who didn't know their limits were the humans. Thinking of this, a Jew deliberately turned around and instructed the soldiers. When you hear an old man or a child calling you later, don't turn around. Why? Some people didn't understand, a Jew said with a pair of round eyes. There are many people who can seduce souls here. Also, if anyone says that they want to fulfill your wish, don't agree. This time it's also because someone is seducing his soul? A Jew shook her head and said, no, it's just that there are too many demons. They will take the opportunity to contract you, and then eat your souls. Just like the soul pawnshop in the past, this is how souls are pawned out. As long as you don't agree to the other party, under normal circumstances, the demons won't force you. Chapter 1332. Was there really such a thing as a soul pawnshop? The soldiers looked at each other. They were all materialists. In the past, they did not believe in these things. However, ever since they carried out the puppet mission last time, they began to realize that perhaps there were indeed many things in this world that could not be explained by science. A Jew did not sense any danger around her. But this time, even the compass could not confirm the direction. Just as she had said, this was the intersection of the three realms. Anything that came here could fail. Bai Zhuan also saw the reaction of the compass. His eyes paused for a moment. Then he squatted down and let Alaska smell the burned wood pile on the ground, as well as the surrounding ground. He said in a low voice, "Trace." Alaska ran towards the west. A Jew immediately understood what her little brother meant. However, even if she knew the direction here, she could not walk around recklessly. The two realms of yin and yang had always minded their own business. If it was anywhere else, it did not matter how they walked during the day. Just as the old people often said, when walking at night, one must walk to the side and not look back. Walk the way you walked before, and don't turn around randomly. This was because there were some things that could see you, but you might not be able to see them. If you bumped into them, you would lose 30% of your yang energy. If you encountered something more powerful and sincerely wanted to harm others, it might stick to you. It was the same situation now. In this place, the demonic energy and yin energy were obviously greater than the yang energy. They could not walk around casually, because it was very likely that they would block the way of death, pulling the ghosts into the underworld. Although it was more complicated to explain, a Jew still told the soldiers all these things with a serious face. We have to walk in a straight line. The yin energy here is too strong. Just the yellow talisman can't avoid those dirty things. In a while, I will walk at the front, and little brother will walk at the back. This way, we will form a yang energy formation, and won't bump into the ghosts passing by. A Jew's method was indeed not bad. It was the simplest analogy. There was such a big fog here. Although the soldiers were all special forces soldiers, they were still ordinary people. They would not see death there. At this time, they needed to light up a lamp. At the very least, they needed to let the ghosts walking at night know that there was such a light source. When they walked, they would naturally go around it. Of course, there were some exceptions. For example, there were indeed ghosts here who wanted to target a Jew. This was because a Jew's body was a great supplement for each of them. With such a natural body of Buddha, he had to deal with her before she became one of the Buddhas. Even if they could only get scraps of meat, this knowledge was a rare treasure for ghosts, especially malicious ghosts. The fog here was really thick. Once they entered the west, the only sunlight was blocked. It was really hard to tell where they were. Furthermore, Eris had also become a little strange. It was as if there was something on the other side of the river that made it very afraid, and it did not want to go there. But Alice would abide by his orders to the end. This was the biggest difference between police dogs and other dogs. Even they had an admirable military spirit. But what exactly is there? A Jew frowned and couldn't help but raise her eyes to look at the winding river in the west. Chapter 1333. The closer they got to the mission point, the thicker the fog became. When the problem legions walked in a line, they felt that even their surroundings had changed. At first, they thought that they were hallucinating. However, as they walked, they realized that they did not know when. But one person after another appeared beside them. Those people walked lightly, as if they were just shadows. Their entire bodies were also wet. Logically speaking, it was not raining here, so how could there be moisture? However, they gave off such a feeling. Moreover, these people's feet were tied with thick black iron chains. At the front of them, a man in a suit lowered his head and looked at the things in his hand. Then he raised his eyes and slid them over their bodies bit by bit. All of you walk faster. If you're any slower, you'll be the ones to suffer. A Jew was walking at the front. After seeing this scene, she was the first to stop and gestured for the problem legions behind her to stand to the left. She meant to leave a path for the man in the suit who was in the lead. After all, the problem legions were special forces soldiers. They were more vigilant than ordinary people. One look at the situation, and they knew that something was not right. Therefore, they also stopped and did not rush over to save them. They only asked in a low voice, "What's going on?" A Jew answered crisply. Her small face was beautiful and cute. The one who brought them is the ghost messenger, which is often called ox-head and horseface. This group of dead spirits should have been brought back by him to be reincarnated. In order to prevent any of them from being lost, he used iron chains to lock their feet. Lost one? Even though he was a special forces soldier, Li Hailu found the scene in front of him very creepy. They had clearly encountered a ghost. How could they lose one? A Jew turned her head to explain to him. Some people don't want to be reincarnated after they die, such as those who still have resentment in their previous lives. Some people can't bear to part with their grandchildren or sons, so they think of ways to escape. Some people don't even know how they died. Such ghosts are usually killed by very close people, or have some accident that they don't even know. The former is because their soul subconsciously doesn't want to remember this matter. The latter is basically a natural disaster. But no matter what kind of death it is, it will be recorded in the death god's notebook. Usually, the death god will harvest these souls, and the souls that are harvested will be chained up. Now the underworld is managed like this. Death god, harvest, those words that could only be heard in comics, when they appeared in real life, would always make people feel a sense of incongruity. Stand over here. Don't let those dead spirits touch you, and don't look at them. A Jew reminded Li Hailu and the others in a low voice. This was a good point for special forces soldiers. They did not have a strong sense of curiosity like ordinary people. There would always be various rules in this world. Once they violated the rules, they would have to pay a price. They did not want to pay this price now, so they simply turned their faces to the side. When the ghost messenger passed by this group of people with the dead spirits, he subconsciously turned his head to look at a Jew, and by Juan, it would be a lie to say that he was not surprised because it had been too long since he had seen someone with such strong yang energy. It made the surroundings a little hot. Moreover, the girl at the front clearly had a Buddhist fate on her, but there were two ghosts following her left and right. Chapter 1334. The ghost messenger looked at her for a long time, but still could not see through her identity. He only nodded at her. In fact, very few people in the human world knew that Hades was also a place with a very polite and working system, provided that these humans did not block their way. Here the three realms were connected. If they touched a little, they would die an unnatural death. With such a sensible person leading this group of people, they should not have any problems. As an official of Hades, he could also identify Buddhist fate. The other ghosts did not have that ability. They only felt that there was something very fragrant around them. They could not help but turn their heads as if they were sniffing something. The ghost messenger pulled the undead back. This group of undead really did not know how to open their eyes. Don't dawdle. All of you walk faster. It has not been peaceful here recently. Don't encounter any demons in the three realms. The ghost messenger was right. Here, demons were more difficult to deal with than undead. However, he did not notice the pair of scarlet eyes that appeared in the thick fog. However, this pair of eyes was not directed at the dead spirit, but at a Jew. The more fragrant the soul, the more it attracted the attention of demons, especially high-level demons who could transform into humans. On the branch of the tree, a tall and straight figure stood there. Then he quickly hid himself. The cunning of demons was that they would never attack head-on. Instead, they would use everything they could. For example, when the ghost messenger was not paying attention, they could get rid of two undead spirits and catalyze them to turn them into evil ghosts. After the scene just now, the problem core all had a new understanding of this world, so they were much quieter. After the undead spirits passed, a Jew brought them back to the original path. She told them that if they saw these people again, whether it was here or when they returned to the city at night, they had to avoid them. After the problem core heard this, they nodded and were about to take a step forward. They saw a bus driving over in the thick fog. That's right, it was a bus. Moreover, the bus had its lights on. It stopped in front of them warmly and honked at them. Li Hailu was a little stunned. This was the wilderness, how could a bus appear? However, Li Hailu did not deny that at that moment, whether it was him or his comrades, none of them did not want to get on the bus. They had been away from the city for too long, so long that they even missed the most ordinary life in the imperial capital. At this time, the more lifelike things appeared, the more they would be able to arouse their desires. For some reason, the two people behind her seemed to have taken a step forward, but a Jew immediately pulled them back. Fortunately, little Aju was strong. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to drag these two special forces soldiers. With a serious expression, she shook her head at them. You can't get on this kind of car. When the two special forces soldiers heard this, they were still in a daze, because the chauffeur gave them a warm feeling. It was like the people they often met in their hometown. They had to admit that they were homesick. Aju frowned. Just as she was hesitating whether to chant the scriptures or not, Baijuan raised his hand and pointed the gun at the driver, who was smiling at them. He said domineeringly with a faint smile, "Friend, we are not on the same path. You walk your bridge of helplessness, and we will walk our human path. Do you understand?" The driver probably didn't expect that a human would point a gun at him. His eyes widened. What kind of world is this? Humans aren't afraid of ghosts like us. He didn't believe in ghosts. He put on a gloomy face to scare him. The bus driver turned his head. His eyes only looked at Baijuan, and his face gradually turned green. That appearance was indeed very scary. The driver was still thinking that this should be enough. Unexpectedly, the man he was looking at actually smiled again. He tilted his head and loosened the body seat on his wrist, stuffing one into the gun. The corners of his mouth were cold as he raised his hand again and pointed at him. Why aren't you leaving? Do you want to die a second time? Not only the driver, but even the passengers on the bus couldn't help but tremble when they saw Baijuan's action. The driver finally opened his mouth and cursed something that only a ghost could understand. He angrily drove his bus away. He couldn't afford to offend such a man. How could he not hide from him? Li Hailu watched from the side and was impressed. He asked in a low voice, "Master Bai, aren't you afraid of them?" "What's there to be afraid of? It's just dead people." Baijuan's gaze was very faint, as if there was no difference in front of him. Li Hailu really felt that Master Bai's answer could be given full marks. But how many people could treat ghosts as ordinary dead people? A Jew admired her little brother very much. She said that her little brother was most suitable to be an exorcist. The bus drove very slowly. When half of the bus drove into the thick fog, the two special forces soldiers finally recovered and looked at the people on the bus. The pregnant woman with a faint smile had her hair burnt off. The high school student who was drinking water just now had a livid face. Everyone in the bus was looking at them and waving at them. If they had just gone up, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Knowing that their willpower was not strong enough, the two special forces soldiers turned their heads and looked at Baijuan. Master Bai, just now I know you guys are homesick. Bai Juan did not wait for them to finish speaking. He smiled lightly. Everyone focus your energy. After this mission is over, we'll go back together. The problem soldiers all nodded. Perhaps the mission this time was too special, making them feel different as well. The small matter that they had not discovered in the past turned out to be so blissful. However, when they thought about it carefully, they had never taken the bus at home. They had always driven. Therefore, it was very strange that they actually wanted to go up at that time. As smart as Bai Juan was, he also realized this problem. He did not know what he was thinking. He raised his eyes and glanced in the direction where the bus had disappeared. Things are not that simple. Be careful later. Yes. At this time, a Jew also told the soldiers that even if they returned to the city in the future, they would be in time to take the last bus home. The faster the driver drove, the fewer people there would be, which was more normal. This was because the driver was also human. He was also in a hurry to go home, so it was impossible for him to smile so warmly at you. If they encountered such a driver, the bus would be packed with people. It was not a weekend or a rainy day. It was best not to get on such a bus. This was because it was very likely that Hades had sent it to transport the undead. Of course, it did not matter if they accidentally got on the bus. They must not panic. When the bus stopped at the next stop, they just had to quickly get off. Chapter 1335. The soldiers listened to Aju's words at the side, and everyone broke out in cold sweat. However, it was probably because their young energy was too strong that they had never seen such a bus before. However, this place was indeed a little different. The three realms converged, and no one knew whether it was a human, a soul, or a demon that came. However, at this moment, Li Hailu suddenly felt a flash in front of his eyes. Then he raised the gun in his hand. Aju also looked in that direction. It was two figures. No, it should be said that they were two evil spirits. Li Hailu paused. Aren't they from the group of people we saw just now? Why didn't they reincarnate? Can they escape from being chained up? This question was a little urgent, but it was very important. Generally speaking, if they did not block the way, these undead spirits should not attack them. Since it went against common sense, Aju's first reaction was that there was a demon nearby. Young energy could not be dispersed. Once it was dispersed, it would be destroyed by the demon one by one. She and her little brother were not afraid. However, as long as it was a human, there would always be a demon controlling them deep in their hearts. For example, the bus just now. Aju had a pair of round eyes. Without hesitation, she directly released the two ghost slayers. Go and deal with them. When the ghost slayers heard this order, they were about to cry. Thinking about it, ever since they were brought to the little master's side, they had been eating their own kind. Evil ghosts like them should eat good ghosts, shouldn't they? There was no other way. If the little master said to take action, they would definitely take action. However, as soon as they took action, the evil aura that swept over made them fall far behind. These were not two ordinary evil ghosts. They had a demonic nature. The ghost slayers spoke ghost language, but even so, the soldiers could also see that the situation was not optimistic. What should we do now? Li Hailu asked Aju. Aju narrowed her eyes. There are demons around. Don't be fooled and don't move. But I keep feeling that someone is behind us. This feeling is too uncomfortable. No special forces soldier could tolerate this. Aju moved her fingers as if she was locating something. At this moment, another black shadow rushed over. That black shadow was very fast. It stretched out its left hand and grabbed straight at the middle. Demons were cunning from birth. He would only strike at the weakest point. Even if his ultimate goal was Aju, he knew very well that in the Yang energy array, the people at the front and the back were the most difficult to deal with. It was obvious that this girl was an exorcist. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known so many things. But even so, as long as he broke through their Yang energy array, an exorcist would be nothing more than a mortal to him. The demon's speed was frighteningly fast. Almost in the next second, his black fingers pushed a person away. Once there was one less person in the middle, it meant that the formation was gone. When the yang energy lamp on Aju's waist went out, the demon also stopped. He was dressed in a black robe, and it was hard to tell his age. However, his black hair was wet, and his scarlet eyes only made people feel fear. Not bad. The demon laughed a little crazily and licked the tip of his tongue. But compared to a man, I prefer the soul of a girl, especially since your spiritual aura is so abundant. How about it? Do you want to make a deal with me? As long as you give me your soul, your companions will survive. Moreover, I can tell you where the people you want to save are. Those archaeologists are still alive in the ancient tomb. Aju did not waste time with him. Looking at the demonic aura that was spreading out from him, she moved her fingers and uttered the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. The Buddhist light behind her shone brightly and cut off the surrounding demonic fog in an instant. The demon paused for a moment. What it did not expect was that the other party was not only an exorcist, but also a person with Buddhist affinity. But this was the intersection of the 3 realms. Any Buddhist affinity should not be produced here. Why could she still attract the Buddhist light? Other than Ksitigarbha, who else would have such an ability? This girl. Who exactly was she? The demon's expression changed, and all kinds of guesses came one after another. Just as he was about to be swallowed by the Buddhist light, his eyes suddenly lit up, as if he had thought of something. He transformed into a cloud and merged with the surrounding environment. He fled in a very sorry state, and even his demonic nature was weakened by half. He even suspected that the person he wanted to kill was deliberately hiding his power here. If this was not the intersection of the 3 realms, it was very likely that as soon as he appeared, he would be burned to death by the Buddhist light. Fortunately, he had cast a layer of ghost identity on himself. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. But now it was different. Since the outer skin on his body was gone, he could put on another outer skin. After all, demons were everywhere. Since there was no yang energy array, he could completely hide in their team. As time passed, that person's soul would be devoured by him. It was said that the human heart was the easiest place to breed demonic intent. The reason why he could hide was all because of this. Aju was worried that he would use such a move. Now that she saw that the demon in front of her was gone, not only did she not smile, but she also frowned heavily. Then she turned her head to look at the problem army. Those people were all at a loss. They did not know what had happened. Their minds were filled with the Buddhist light that filled the sky just now. Aju's brows furrowed again. This time, even her expression became solemn. Oh no, if that demon hid, it would be very difficult to find him. So what if you have the light of Buddha? As long as there are humans, I can hide. Didn't you want to kill me just now? Now look around and see who I'll be on. You have to choose carefully. If I'm not here, you'll hurt your own companions when you make a move. That's right, the demon said in a low voice. You don't have to worry about me. If I'm not here, you'll hurt your companions when you make a move. Demons were cunning by nature. This sentence was not false at all. He pushed Aju into a sure-death chess game. The demon was hiding in their group, and no one knew who it was. Not only could Aju not tell, but even the person hiding the demon's identity did not know that the demon had already hidden in his heart. Aju narrowed her tiger eyes. If she made a move, she was afraid that she would recognize the wrong person. When the time came, the demon would not be taken away, and that person would lose his soul. Because it was necessary to deal with the demon, she had to use the soul-removing spell. Once she was accidentally injured, she would not be able to return. But if she did not make a move, in less than 2 hours, the person hiding the demon in his heart would be seized by the demon and replaced. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.